Good evening, everyone. I'm going to get started. It's a little after 6, so this is the meeting of the Planning Advisory Committee on November 24th, 2025. We have an agenda before us. If there's anyone who'd like to add anything to the agenda from the committee, please let me know. Or otherwise, if someone would like to make a motion to approve it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thomas. Can I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor McGrath. Okay, all those in favor of accepting the agenda as circulated, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any contrary minded? Great, motion approved. We have our minutes before us as well from our last meeting, which was October 27th. Sorry, I didn't do, sorry, I meant to do the land acknowledgement, so I'll just move to that next, please. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We also acknowledge that people of African descent have been in Nova Scotia for over 400 years. We offer gratitude and honor those ancestors of Mi'kmaq and African descent who came before us to this land. So the minutes from our October 27th, 2025 meeting have been circulated. If there are any amendments or errors, please let me know. And otherwise, if they are acceptable, if somebody would like to move to approve them, that would be great. Ms. Arabelle? Sorry, Mr. Laurier. Councillor Graham, thank you. All right, all those in favor of accepting the minutes as circulated, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you. Before we get to the items on our agenda that relate to the projects, I would like to welcome our new member, Haley Johnson, who is our representative from Millbrook. Thank you for agreeing to serve on the committee, Haley. We really appreciate that. Okay, so the first project on our agenda is at step 3 of the expanded process, and that is a development at 373 Roby Street by Lennox Developments Limited. And the applicants are here, Mr. Johnstone, Mr. Brown. Yes, thank you. And so, but first we'll hear from Planner Connolly, whose project this is.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will ask our director just to make sure that the projector is on, because for some reason it's not showing up with this keypad.
Can people?
There we go. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you. As mentioned, this is the application for 373 Roby Street. It is at the step 3 of the expanded process as mentioned. So just so everyone's familiar, these are the subject lands shown on the aerial photo on the screen. Approximately just over a half an acre in area and have approximately 30 meters or 100 feet of frontage on Roby Street. So the roads that you see there, to orient yourselves, that's Longworth, where the mouse cursor is moving, Roby Street, George, and Hingley. Subject lands are within the urban corridor policy area. Multiple unit residential proposals with more than 12 dwelling units shall be considered by development agreement. That's as per policy UC 49 of the town's municipal planning strategy. Subject site, the lands are also zoned, so they have a designation and a zone. The lands are designated urban corridor and are zoned urban corridor as well. The subject site is outside the 1 to 100 floodway fringe, which is, this is the hatched area as shown. Here we have some photos just of the subject site to orient everybody. So we see this is the subject property, the yellow house at the end of Longworth Avenue. That's on actually Roby Street. Here we have another view of the subject site. And another kind of orientation aerial photo, just kind of get an idea, if we haven't already noticed that, of where the subject site sits in relation to the surrounding properties. So as mentioned, it is at step 3, the expanded application process to consider these size of developments are 5 steps in totality, and this is at a step 3. So here we see the current proposal. So the current proposal is on the left. This is a site plan image. It's a little bit hard to see because there is a lot of detail on there, but we do see the previous proposal, which is on the right hand of the screen. So based on previous information that was, and feedback that was given by the Planning Advisory Committee at previous meetings at 1 and 2, the applicant and developer or the architect and the developer worked together to change a lot of elements that we're going to see as we go through the presentation. This includes the site plan. So the original, which you get a sense of just viewing these site plans, the original building itself was larger. It actually filled more of the property, or it went out to more of the extent of the property. So it was a little bit closer to the side yard setback, which is clearly visible on the west side of the property. And here you can see that clearly it's been pulled back. And there have been a few changes to the exterior, which we will get into in more detail, but what you see here, these are actually balconies, and they are oriented on a 45-degree angle, so not perpendicular to the property, as you can see on the previous proposal, but more on that 45-degree angle. Again, Roby Street, just to orient yourself, is at the bottom of this particular slide, with above-ground parking, and then 2 other driveways had been proposed. Now, I just received today additional information with an updated site plan. So the developer, based on feedback that was received by comments from the public survey, as well as comments that were given during the public information meeting, the developer and architect the design team have worked to redesign the site. So now there is 1 driveway for the underground parking, and it's kind of on an angle, so you would enter where the existing driveway is and kind of go to your left and then down into the underground parking area. And then on the left hand or the west side of the site, where the other existing driveway is where there will be a few above ground parking spaces available. More details will come and will be presented during the public hearing. This was received today again, so this will be the only side of the updated site plan that we have here today, but just for the committee's consideration. So here we see again on the left and on the right, on the left we have the current proposal, and on the right we have the previous proposal. So you do get a sense again of how the parking podium was proposed underground. So it did almost cover the entire width of the site. Again, it has been pulled back quite a bit from the side yard setbacks and the underground parking entry. So again, Roby Street is at the bottom of these slides to get a sense. The parking has been reduced. So the previous proposal had 46 spaces proposed. The current has 33 underground spaces. Current is on the top and the previous is on the bottom. So we get a sense, this one is the first floor entry. So the developer and the design team have moved the recreational facilities, where on the bottom, you can see that there was a pickleball court and a fitness recreational space at the rear of the site. So in this slide, Roby Street is going to be to your right-hand side of the slide. They have removed those and actually relocated them to the front. So my mouse is moving where that pickleball court has been relocated and the fitness studio. So it's more at the front of the building beside the lobby and less at the rear next to the existing residential properties. This is a typical floor plan that we can see. So it has been revised from the previous, which is on the bottom, obviously to accommodate for that new layout and shape of the building. But there is a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units proposed in the development, which it was also proposed like that in the previous submission. This gives you a sense of how the architectural elements have changed for the building. On the right is the previous submission. It was pretty contemporary and modern, I would say, in stylings. The left is still contemporary, however, it takes a more traditional approach to the building's design. So we do see a lot of elements that we don't see on that previous proposal that have been incorporated. The gable roof, for instance, is much less steep of a pitch, and there are a bit more prominent projections, and we're going to get into those as we progress through this presentation. Here's a view of the same application. Again, on the right, it's the previous, and the current is on the left. So this is the rear of the building facing those rear lots, or the rear backyards of the Churchill properties. Here we see the west elevation. So again, previous on the bottom, current on the top. These are line drawings, so they just are more of an architectural rendering, so you don't really see the materials really clearly, or the cladding, or the colors don't really stand out as much. Those will be, those are expected to be updated and supplied prior to the public hearing. So here we have a conceptual rendering of what that looks like. The previous proposal on the right, the current on the left. So you do see the projections that are proposed at the front of the building. So this is Roby Street at the bottom of the picture. And you see those angled balconies that I did reference before. So they have the privacy slats and they're angled. So again, you don't really have a clear view where on the right, you can see where they are located. On the left, they're more obscured. Here's another angled shot of the proposed building, again at the front. This one is more facing or taken from the eastern side of the building. So this proposal is 4 stories in height. This is reduced from the previous submission, which was 5. So it's going to be, the max height is 11 meters or 36.1 feet. The number of units is 44, reduced from the previous submission. The unit mix now is 26 one-bedrooms, 14 two-bedrooms, 4 three-bedroom units, and the lot coverage is around the same at 53% for the building and then 60% impermeable surface. So this includes things like parking areas or walkways that the water wouldn't be able to penetrate into the ground as easily. So again, parking has 33 spaces below grade and 3 above, which works out to a parking ratio of 0.81 spaces per unit. And amenity space is provided at more than the land use bylaw requirement at 951 square meters or just over 10,000 square feet. So this is the enabling policy that was mentioned before that allows council to even consider entering into a development agreement. So it was mentioned previous in this application, UC 49. So planning staff have reviewed this proposal based on the applicable policies that are found in the town's planning documents. So this includes the municipal planning strategy as well as the land use bylaw. Potential issues that were identified early on are the building height and scale, density, and traffic. The proposal also aligns with many of the town's policies, including increased residential densities near the downtown, new dwelling units on existing infrastructure, so this would be intensification versus sprawl, and walkable neighborhoods. So we'll dig into that a little bit more. So this is a summary of those key issues. So height. So the revised proposal, as mentioned, is 4 stories or 11 meters. And if anybody wants to find these are attached, the full policy review is attached as Appendix A to the staff report on the website. So the revised proposal is 4 stories in height, which meets the land use bylaw requirement, which is 11 meters as stated. This is taller than the established pattern of development along the section of Roby Street, which consists of single and 2-story homes. And the transition from 1 and 2-story buildings to a 4-story building has the potential to create a notable transition that could make a building feel out of scale and out of context. However, the architect has incorporated elements to lessen this impact, and these include the bay and the inset. It has been incorporated. It breaks up the front of the facade, and instead of a blank wall facing Roby Street, there's now a bay that creates 2 asymmetrical projections. And so you can see here the graphic on the right kind of shows you one sticks out a bit further at 8 meters, 8.5 meters, than the other at 5 and 5.6 meters. So those projections, as mentioned, these 2 projections serve to create a visual interest on the front facade, which reduces the impact of the larger building. The projections are substantial at more than 5 meters or 16 feet deep, which creates the impression of 2 separate smaller buildings to lessen the sense of mass. So the smaller sections are more comparable to the typical homes found in the streetscape. The gable roof lines. This style of roof is commonly used in traditional residential construction. Gable roofs versus flat roofs are expected to help the building blend more harmoniously into the surrounding streetscape. Additionally, the rooftop is stepped back from Roby Street 16 meters, 52.5 feet. It is staff's opinion that the perceived height of the building will be reduced by the stepped back roof, as pedestrians walking by will have the impression of a 3-story building versus its full height. So you can see that here. So you can see where the projections come out, and then the actual roof line to the main building only starts at that 16-meter mark from Roby Street. The architect has also made an effort to address potential incompatibility related to the building's height and overall scale by incorporating a mixture of exterior colors, varied application of materials, incorporation of bays and projections on all sides, and by incorporating architectural elements such as what appear to be belt courses, which are noted here. So those are kind of perpendicular to the ground or parallel to the ground elements that just break up the facade. So considering the above noted elements that have been incorporated into the design, planning staff expect that the proposed height and scale will not pose a significant compatibility issue with the existing streetscape and the surrounding neighborhoods. Density is the other potential key issue area. So the density of the proposed development is 183 units or 74 units per acre. So while other properties in the area have densities ranging from 3.5 to 40 units per hectare, which is 1.4 to 14.28 units per acre, the building exceeds existing densities in the neighborhood and has the potential to create compatibility issues. So the ground floor footprint is 1,257 square meters in area, which covers approximately 53% of the lot. Surrounding buildings, for context, cover 4% up to 44% of their lot. It's not entirely incompatible amount of lot coverage, but when you take it into context of the existing neighborhood and the relatively low percentage of lot coverage, the proposed building is expected to appear larger. Planning staff expect that the incorporation of the elements listed under height and scale above, combined with the balcony views being partially obscured by the privacy slats and angled at 45 degrees, as well as the relocation of the recreational amenities space from the rear to the front of the building, are all expected to lessen the potential negative impacts of the larger density development. Planning staff support the proposal with the elements as shown and expect any potential issues related to height, bulk, scale, or density to be reduced or mitigated by the aforementioned elements. It is important to note that the proposal will abut the rear properties on the west side of Hingley, the south side of Churchill, but the development itself is oriented to and accessible from Roby Street. As such, the proposal is expected to have minimal impact on Hingley, George, and Churchill. The portion of Roby Street adjacent to the development is well-traveled thoroughfare linking uptown Truro and the Highway 102 exit 14 with Truro's downtown. This portion of Roby Street is characterized by modest single-family homes dating from the early 1900s, some converted into multiple unit dwellings. Roby Street is classified as a collector street and is characterized by a mixture of uses along its length. It also acts as the dividing line between the surrounding neighborhoods of Longworth and Churchill. Residential density and intensification is appropriate along collector roads and is expected to occur in these locations, as noted in the Urban Corridor Policy Context section, which is 4.1.1 of the town's municipal planning strategy. Planning staff support the development proposal at this site as it has frontage on a collector road and is not in the middle of one of the surrounding established low-density neighborhoods. Well, I got ahead of myself on that one. So here we just see another rendering of that site plan. Traffic. Traffic has been brought up and has been one of, if not the most commented upon issues that we have heard of. So that, again, was information provided at the public information meetings. It also was information provided on the comments submitted to staff, as well as council members. So the major concerns were Longworth being used as a thoroughfare, the school bus stop near the intersection, parking on both sides of Longworth, and a general increase in vehicular traffic, as well as challenges maybe turning left onto Roby from Longworth, or vice versa. The comments from the traffic authority, so the applicant has submitted a traffic study for the previous application. So this was, again, a larger development that was considered by Planning Advisory Committee in the spring. Traffic impact statement was completed. The findings still stand and will probably actually be a little bit more in favor of the current development because the unit number is less, as well as the parking available is less. So the study itself estimated that 19 two-way vehicle trips during peak morning, as well as 20 two-way trips in the peak evening, is not expected to create a significant impact on the traffic in that area. This study does mention that setbacks of obstructions should be at least 4.5 meters or 4.4 meters from Roby Street to ensure that stopping and sight distances are maintained, which is a reasonable request. An updated development application notice sign has been posted on the subject site, which everybody probably has seen. The information is regularly updated on the town's websites under active development applications, and the public participation survey will remain open up until the public hearing. 3 mailouts were also sent to 109 property owners throughout this process in March, June, and November of this year to advise of the application in its various states. A public information was also held on Wednesday, November 19th at the Truro Public Library. There were 2 sessions, one at 12 and one at 6 p.m. Here we see the results of the survey. So these do not include the findings from the public information meeting. This is just the results from the public survey that's available on the town's website. It was updated just today. We had received a few more comments, so 113 in total from the 107 that were submitted in the report. So there's 46.9 in favor and 52% opposed and less than 1% who had no opinion. These will again be updated prior to the public hearing. So as mentioned, following this meeting where we see where we are in the process, this will, following PAC's recommendation, either to enter into or support staff's recommendation or not support staff's recommendation, it will go to a public hearing. And that is expected to be held in January. So staff's recommendation, approve with conditions. Staff are recommending that council enter into a development agreement with the applicant to permit the 4-story multi-unit residential development with up to 44 dwelling units and 36 parking spaces at lands at 373 Roby, subject to the developer submitting a stormwater management plan and a landscaping plan to the town. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Planner Connolly. That was very thorough and really appreciate that. Okay, just so everybody is aware of the process, we will start with the committee asking questions, asking for clarification either from Planner Connolly or from the developer or the architect. If one of you wishes to sit at the microphone, you're welcome to. And then we will have a mobile microphone to move around the room to let members of the gallery have their comments. Okay, Councillor Graham.
Regarding the process, Ms. Connolly, we as a committee or myself as a council member have received several letters regarding this application from residents in the area. I didn't see them included in this package, but my memory may be failing me. Do we not receive those here, or are they only for the public hearing?
They were included as part of the email. They're not included as part of the report itself. They were attached when the email was sent out to Planning Advisory Committee, and they will be made available as well prior to the public hearing to council for their decision making. So okay. A copy of the survey results redacted, so only the vote that the person made, the time that it was submitted, and then any comments that they had submitted, those were circulated, as well as any comments that were received via email from council members or anybody else. If they were emailed to me, they were also included in that package that was emailed out.
Thank you. I'll double check.
Okay.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. Just want a few questions. A ground floor pickleball space, excuse me. Pickleball's a noisy, it's a great sport, but it's noisy. Bing, 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 right? So what about insulation in that part, and also windows, et cetera, where noise transfer, you know, all that? Have you got some comments on that?
Only having 22.5, I believe, percent. Sorry. Whereas 25% is usually the target.
Still not on, I don't think. It is now.
Are we good?
Yeah, we're good now.
Okay. So the 22.5% versus 25% being the target for glazing along the ground floor facing the street. Part of that was because we reduced the glazing in the pickleball area at the front and down the side as well to mitigate that impact on the adjacent neighbor.
Okay.
Of course, in the building itself, the systems that you'll be implicating are, they would include such insulation Dense materials, it would be a thicker floor assembly, drop ceiling. There's many construction measures.
Right, and there's soundproofing too that can be done with the walls inside, you know, right? Certain compounds you can use before you put the wall board on, et cetera. You know all that stuff.
Yes,
so, yeah.
exactly. And same with anything that goes to residential from any other space automatically has a required code requirement for high STC values in the first place as a starting point.
Okay. Lighting, I think lighting's important, and it keeps reporting, it keeps saying in the report that it would be according to the bylaws. In other words, cut-off lighting. In other words, no light can go above the horizontal of the fixture itself. So it can't be one that shines like this horizontally. It must shine like this somehow horizontally. But I would like you to consider as a developer and an architect that you even be more sensitive to the lighting, because it's going to be above these houses. And I've seen some very good examples where lighting is incorporated perhaps into the eaves of the building and is pointed down straight down somehow, which gives light to the walkways, et cetera, but doesn't intrude on neighbors' properties. And though that's not in our bylaws, I'd like you to consider that. You don't have to do that, but I'd like you to consider that. Be very sensitive about light pollution on neighboring properties.
It's a good point.
Okay,
Aligned, yeah.
okay. Fencing material. Yeah, it said metal fence, and I kind of thought, wow, you know, what does that mean, a metal fence? Is that like a nice, you know, ornate fence, or is that like whatever, right?
The metal fence comment, I believe, was about the neighbor's property from the civil survey identifying the existing fence of the neighbor to the right. So the fencing material has not been selected yet, but that would be part of the landscaping plan that would be coming. Yeah.
Because I saw it on one of the plans, and it kind of, radar went up on a metal fence. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. What kind of cladding I know you'll have this, but I just want to mention cladding. I think cladding's very important, that it look residential, not institutional. So any comments on that? What are you thinking about so far? I know you're going to come up with something by the time you have the public hearing, but where are your thoughts going on this?
Certainly. Depending on some of the setbacks, non-combustible cladding is likely a requirement for most of it. That can be made to look a lot more residential, such as wood grain metal sidings instead of traditional vinyls. I wouldn't be proposing combustible wood on the outside of this in the first place. And there's a lot of various materials that can be made to look different ways. And depending on their testing for code, we'd be putting those in place here, but we want to make sure we're looking at residential grade appearances.
There's concrete siding as well, cladding, you know,
Certainly.
et cetera, et cetera.
And the stone around the base that we were showing as a hatch as well, that would be some type of a concrete or stone material, possibly masonry, but the exact material we don't have specified yet.
Great. What about garbage? I couldn't see anything on the, you know, there's no place obviously up front, and there's no driveways down the side, so it's got to be in the underground, but I couldn't see it in the plans of the underground. Did I miss that somehow, or is it there?
It's down in the bottom, drawing would be bottom right. There's a large bike parking room as well as a refuse room down below.
Okay. Okay, and so there'll be enough room for a truck to back down inside there. Yeah, these trucks are huge, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, right. The planner mentioned in the traffic study that there had to be like a 14-foot sight line when you're coming out of the building. You have 14 feet before the road starts, so that you can look left or right, you know, coming out up Roby and down Roby Street. Does it have 14 feet once you know, it said that's what the recommendation was. Does it meet that recommendation? Are you aware of that at this point?
I'll have to double check, but the current one that is up on the screen right now that we were just providing today as a follow-up to the review comments from last week's open house and the past comment is that it's the elevation that I can't confirm right now. If the window of the vehicle would likely be up well before the 14-foot mark at this point, but I have to confirm.
Okay, that would be great. Coming to the end here. It does exceed, I believe it does exceed the parking requirement. Is that correct? I think it's generally about 0.5, but I didn't figure it out for this one. So generally 0.5 per unit in urban corridors. So
It depends. It's 0.25 spaces per bedroom and
Right.
0.25 spaces per unit. So it's a calculation, and I broke it down in the report if you're interested, if I can just.
I tried to find it and I couldn't find it.
Yeah, no problem. Let me just.
You know, you've got it at 0.81 spaces per unit.
Oh, I didn't include what the land use bylaw requirement is in that section, and it is 0.81 is for the total parking that's available on the site.
Right.
It is in my notes, if you just want to bear with me. I do think it exceeds the town. I think the bylaw requirement was 29 spaces.
Right.
And they're providing 36.
Yeah, I guessed it was so, but I didn't do the math. Okay, excellent. My last point, question at this point is this changing of the driveway from the eastern part to the center of the development. Is that going to have a detrimental effect as far as planting some sort of trees, street side trees? I believe that street side trees are important for this project because it's going to be larger than other buildings on the neighborhood, and when those trees get mature, et cetera, it'll help bring greater balance to the streetscape. So I want to make sure that happens. I understand, the traffic and all that, and so I think that needs to be at least part of the equation when you're thinking about moving it, that's all.
Yeah,
Right.
certainly. And the 14-foot obstruction piece would be the one item where when they're located, making
Right.
sure that that's not within proximity of that driveway coming.
Right, exactly, okay. Okay, that's my questions for now, thank you.
Councillor Graham?
Just to follow up on my previous question, thank you very much. They were indeed, and for the gallery's information, the letters from the community have been included in our package. I have read them all personally. They came in individually, but they are part of the package that the entire committee has received. But I've included one more, Ms. Connolly, that didn't make its way to you nor the committee from Mr. Owen Poirier. So I'd like to make sure that that is included in subsequent packages at our public hearing.
Yes, if you forward that to me, I will include it moving forward.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, everyone, for being here. Nice to see everybody here. Quick points. The Deputy Mayor, I agree fully with his comments on the lighting. That's something that, if this goes ahead, is going to be critical. We're not going to want these lights shining down into people's yards. The garbage, again, that is something that very few people think about. That's why we're here, I guess. Want to make sure that the garbage is looked after, because I've lived in some buildings where the garbage is not sufficient for what's been planned. So hopefully this is meeting the requirements. Can you go into any detail about how you've calculated the sizes of garbage needed, like the garbage room, the number of bins? Is there a calculation you've used? X number of bins per unit, per bedroom?
It's just a rule of thumb at this point that's being shown from past experience.
Okay, and no issues with the other buildings where you've used this rule of thumb, which I don't like to use that. That's
I appreciate that. I've actually contacted Regroup from a past project, and they don't have a standard guideline in place to follow like a code item for that. And so I was shocked by that, and that's where we've essentially gone from experience on the rule of thumb for those.
right. And then with the moving of the driveway, we were talking about motorist visibility, and I think I heard you say you're pretty sure that the windshield and windows of the car will be above ground and visible. I don't love pretty sure. I want 100% sure, because this is something that I have brought up numerous times. My biggest issue with this development agreement from day one has been visibility here and the location of the driveway with regards to the intersection with Longworth. Now, if you can confirm that, that would go a long way toward winning my support. But also, can we confirm that this driveway relocation, and it's unfortunate this is our first time seeing it, does that now align better with Longworth? So we're able to see, if I'm driving out of this underground parking, I can not only see pedestrians before I'm on the sidewalk, I'll be able to see other motorists on the roadway, and I'll be able to see motorists on Longworth, so we don't have that left turning, collision. Sorry, the word I'm looking for is not coming to me, but the potential for that collision, which has bothered me right from go, but it would go a long way. I want to ask a question of our traffic authority who has graced us with his presence this evening. Have we looked into three-way stop there, or I guess with including the driveway, a four-way stop in order to help mitigate a lot of the concerns? And I know we're saying that we're looking at, I think it was 19 peak trips, 19 trips in the peak AM, 20 trips in the peak PM. And it wasn't clear to me if that was the old proposal or the new one, because I think Ms. Connolly said it's actually with the new proposal actually be lower. Do we have that confirmed? Sorry, I'm all over the place with my questions a little bit there. I apologize. Let's start with the easy ones. 19 AM peak, 20 PM peak. Is that the previous proposal or the current?
That's the traffic study that was done with the previous proposal.
So
Numbers will go down.
So the number should go down because we have fewer parking. Perfect. When we are looking at mitigating, now I know we've only got like the 33 underground spaces, and we're looking at possibly less than, 19 in the peak, 20 in the PM peak. There have been a lot of concerns raised as well about the speeding in the area, which is not unique, unfortunately, to Roby Street. This is a problem everywhere where there are cars and motorists, something that we hear on council a lot about throughout the town. Is this something that we have considered, especially given this development? Have we investigated or given any thought to making that a three-way stop or four-way stop similar to what we've done all along Arthur Street?
No, we haven't. There's been no investigation into a four-way or three-way stop. That doesn't mean it's not something that we can do, but at the time we haven't investigated.
Okay, now I may be straying off base a little bit here because that's, stop signs at the intersection will not be directly related to this development as it's not under their responsibility. But I think it would be incumbent upon the town to investigate that. Ms. Connolly talked a lot about the walkability, which we do get from the density, which I do appreciate. What's going to make an area more walkable as well is making it safe. And that means slowing down some of the traffic. And, someone might say, well, it's going to impede the flow of traffic. But when I hear improved flow of traffic, I hear dangerous for everybody outside of a motor vehicle. Quite frankly, dangerous for a lot of people inside a motor vehicle. So I would love to see some more traffic mitigations that we can go into there. And I won't dwell any more on that because it is only adjacent to the development agreement. I do also, Ms. Connolly, want to forward you an email that I got from a Miss Riley, who I do see in the gallery. Her email I just received this afternoon. It's not included in the package sent to the committee. If you could include that for the committee and for the public hearing, it would be much appreciated. And I imagine she's going to touch on a few of those points for us this evening.
I will include it.
Thank you.
To address a couple of those driveway aspects, I'll just say that yes, that is the entire purpose of that has been relocated to be centered on Longworth, so that it gives the opportunity for four-way stop, three-way stop, what have you. It now affords the opportunity for that and aligning that intersection. The other thing I'll say about the confirming the height is that there's about 3 and change meters on the inside and 5.5 meters on the outside of that driveway. That's within a 5% slope from the sidewalk, which would therefore tell me that it is going to be well above at that point, but I would like the opportunity to confirm that for you.
Good. Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate you confirming that well above sounds good, especially if it is for a smaller car like what I drive versus the gargantuan trucks that most other people drive. Because again, when we are looking at, visibility, safety, walkability, and I attended a session recently, all the days are blurring together, but recently on micromobility and the future of transportation, because quite frankly, I've said this, I don't know how many times before, but I'm going to say it again, cars are getting bigger, cars are getting heavier, they're getting more dangerous, they're getting more expensive, they're getting harder to insure, and that is a large part of why I like when I see one of these developments that has the density and the walkability to encourage people to not need to drive. Wanted to touch a little bit on the pickleball court. I know the deputy mayor has already pinged you a little bit on this. You moved it from the back to the front. Is that an acknowledgement basically that it can be noisy and that, that we're trying to mitigate? Because I would have assumed an proper indoor court would have been a lot quieter. You wouldn't hear it outside like you would at, say, the Cougar Dome, where it's just that's not a wood or concrete or insulated building necessarily. You can hear a lot of what's going on outside that, but I would assume in your building it'd be a lot more soundproofing happening.
Yes, and in fact, that wasn't the reason for pulling it forward. The reason was to ensure more of a security and privacy issue for the surrounding neighbors, because when it is in the back, then you have more traffic in the original design moving down the side of the building by people's backyards to get into that public recreation space. Whereas this way, we have all the publicly accessed components out on Roby Street to keep that away from moving in people's backyards.
Okay, so that is public. You said that's going to be available publicly I could go down there. I don't live in that building, but I could go down there and play pickleball.
It's a little more nuanced than that. It's primarily for the residents, and depending on the use of it, it may be open to the public.
Okay, fair enough. And then speaking of public usage and such, car share. You had talked earlier versions of this about having some dedicated car share parking. Is that still included in this? Because I didn't see it called out specifically.
It's still the intention to do that, yes.
Still the intention to do that. Perfect. Love to have that because that, again, does reduce the overall need for a lot of parking. But I would point out to the traffic authority that if we have car share vehicles there, that may actually increase the number of trips. So there's fewer privately owned vehicles, but those car share vehicles may be back and forth a little bit more often. We want to keep that in mind when we're thinking about the traffic. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to talk about setbacks. First of all, I want to thank you for including the figures on setbacks. It was very helpful, and I did look at them. And when we're looking at the setbacks, it seems to, this whole project, when it first came to committee here, it exceeded all the bylaws for height, et cetera. That it doesn't anymore. And even the setbacks, it didn't meet any of the setback requirements. But it just about does now, if not meet them, because just for the education of us all, or the audience, when an urban corridor project abuts a general residential area, there has to be at least 19.7 feet, I believe it is, between the building and that property line. That's my understanding. You could correct me if I'm wrong. 6 meters. And so initially it didn't. And when you look at this project and where it's situated, there's only 2 properties that are, this project only abuts 2 general residential properties. That's all. The rest of the project abuts urban corridor. So it can be like 8 feet or so. I can't remember, but it's about 8 feet or 8.2 feet or something like that when it abuts an urban core. So there's 2 properties, and those exist on the eastern side of the project, and they're at the very back of the project. And so I just want to take a look at that, if you would, Ms. Connolly. We can just take a look at that figure, and I'm just trying to look at that figure. That figure is, I don't know what it is, page 7 of the report that you gave out. And it's got all the setbacks on it. And it says 5.4, right? That's what I understand, is the closest it comes to the property of a general residential. So that's that's 0.6 of a meter, which is 2 feet short of what it should be. And every place else, it kind of meets it, right? So just have to consider that. I have to consider that, you know. This project's come a long way from, 6 stories to 4 stories. And then pulling it back on the sides, you know. So I just want you to realize that, and I want to thank the planning department for providing those figures, because I'm always looking for those figures and how it relates. So I want to thank you for providing those for us tonight. Thank you.
Okay, anything else from the committee members, or would we like to go to the gallery to have a few comments? And just a reminder, we will hand around a microphone. We do appreciate it if you could wait to speak into the microphone. Introduce yourself, please. We also would remind people to be cordial, please. This is a public process where we like to hear people's input, but we try to keep it civil. We try to keep the applause to a minimum. We're not here, pardon the analogy, for a rally. This is really just an opportunity for everybody to have an opportunity to speak. So that's much appreciated. And please just raise your hand, and you will bring the microphone around.
Nobody ever wants to go first, so I'll take it. So my name is Faye, and anybody up there from council has probably received my proposal that I put forward in the last few days. I love the idea of having a stop, like the 4-way stop or 3-way stop or whatever. I think that would be amazing. We are concerned about the fact that with this building pretty much facing Longworth, that it is going to change the look of our neighborhood. It's going to change the feel of our neighborhood with the traffic. And the fact that with the seniors complex on the corner, many people are using mobility scooters and having a difficult time now to get around. So we just want to keep our neighborhood as safe as we can. We appreciate its progress. Not necessarily do we agree it's good progress, but I understand why the town would be interested in having it. But we already have traffic congestion at that end of the street with the seniors building, with service vehicles, with visitors, ambulances, fire trucks. I mean, it's all there. And we're just concerned that with that many more cars, or the ride share, whatever it is, going 30 or 40 every morning and every afternoon, or 20 or whatever the number was, like, we don't want to lose the neighborhood feel that we have. And I very much appreciate everybody listening and reading my material, and I'm sorry if I'm a pest, but it's important.
Thank you.
My name's David Aylmer, 65 Longworth. I notice here in this paper, Mr. Johnson explained the rationale behind the presentation's larger context images, noting that they had asked the architects to demonstrate what the street would look like in 15 to 20 years if all urban corridor rezoned lots were developed. Can you tell us, can you give us an idea of what sort of context or imagination you have for what this place is going to look like in 20 years?
Would you like me to respond, or?
Well, you're the developer.
Thank you. Yes, no, I would have loved a chance to chat with you there last week at the public consultation, but I understand, yeah, no. Look, all I simply asked my architect to do was to take what the town has already identified from a town planning standpoint as urban corridor and say, what could this potentially look like in 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah.
And they did. So at the end of the day, the town has signaled that they would like to see some densification here, and I just happen to be the first person here to make that
put
happen.
yours in, and Mr. Curry down the road is going to have a 350 apartment building down the road. So a four-way stop's going to do wonders there. Also, I've got one other.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Now, the way that you've got the building built or proposed, in your apartment, how are the balconies going to be? If I buy one of your apartments and I have a balcony, do I just get to see out of this side, but not that side? And does the way that the sun comes round is going to have your balcony in the shade all the time? Is that, have you looked into that?
My architect's right here.
So, excuse me, yes, depending on what side of the building you're on, if you're on the east side, then you're more favorable to have shadow more than sun. And the intent is, yes, that it's the long edge of the balcony is facing out of the building. The side edge has slats on it, and the neighboring building beyond would have that next bump out coming out. So you are very narrowed in your view from the balcony, and the entire intent, of course, being to mitigate view planes around all the neighboring properties.
Okay.
Just a reminder for people to hold the microphone in front of their mouths when they're speaking would be wonderful. It's for our viewing public. Thank you.
My name is Stephen. I live on Longworth Avenue, and my question is for the developer. Just back in the planning stages when you were coming up with this idea, I'm curious as to why you felt it was a good idea to provide parking for 75% of your tenants. What about the other 25% that in fact there's no parking for, plus the visitors, plus the people visiting from pickleball? I understand that the plan is for those people to park on neighboring streets, Longworth, Hingley, George. Do you think that's a good plan? I mean, was that your idea, was to have those people park in front of your neighbor's house and not to visit them, but to visit somebody in your building? Is that a good plan?
Hi, Stephen. In a word, yes. We've worked with our architecture team to establish what will work from a parking ratio standpoint, not just for the residents of the building, but also for the neighborhood.
Not too sure what you said. Is it a good plan
Yes.
to have tenants and visitors to that building park in front of other people's houses to go in there? That's a good plan.
Our parking ratios
Okay.
meet the town's expectations.
All right, I'm trying to be, what Madam Chair said about being cordial. I just go back to, this is more for the councilors, I guess, than anything. Going back over some plans that you've approved in the most recent years, the building on Gulf Street, which is not yet started, a building at the bottom of Ford Street. I believe the building on Gulf Street at one time was going to be 80 units. After some debate, it got reduced to 60. If it ever does get built, and if it does, part of your approval was that there be 60 parking units for the 60 units. Ford Street started out, I think, at 56 units, got approved at 18 units, parking for all 18 units, plus parking for visitors. I would just sort of hope that the same thread of common sense for parking comes to the forefront when you cast your vote for 373 Roby Street. Thank you.
I don't know if any of us has the Gulf or Ford Street projects in front of us. I don't recall there was that they're, anyway, maybe it's something someone can pull up. But it is important to know that parking ratios are changing, and part of the reason they are is because projects, there is a bit of an agreement that projects should be less, like in Halifax, for example, I'm pretty sure they've basically gotten rid of all their parking requirements on their new projects. So there is a trend in the planning world to move away from that high requirement of parking, because sometimes it can be fatal to a project that otherwise would provide housing. Yeah, and again, I can't recall that, and I don't know if any of our planners can, but there have been some changes even recently that the committee has been sort of aware of, and
Other developments such as this whereby there's not enough parking spaces for,
do you mind just grabbing the microphone there?
oh, I think you can hear me without this, can't you?
It's for the television.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you approved other projects where there is less parking?
Less than this in terms of ratio? Yes.
Which ones were they? Which developments?
Be the Stanfields development, also the development on English Place, which is back before the committee tonight, was less parking. There's been a number that have been well below 1-to-1, so.
And where there's not enough parking on the development, the excess tenants are to park on the street, the visitors.
Well, what we've seen in the past, what we're seeing from the industry, like from the developers, is what they're telling us, and what we're seeing is that there is more than enough parking when we require what we used to require, which is 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit. It's just ended up creating a lot of excess parking that wasn't being used. It drives up the price of development, so your cost per unit goes up, so it increases rents. So in the interest of trying to keep costs down, we're trying to reduce the amount of parking requirements that aren't being used effectively. It also has negative environmental benefit or impacts. So if you have surface parking, you get more runoff, more flooding, more water pollution as a result of that. There's urban heat island effect from a lot of asphalt space. Less green space. So there's all kinds of negatives associated with having all this parking that's not being used. So we're trying to be more reasonable in our approach to looking for parking requirements.
We have examples in Truro where excess parking is not being used?
Yes, we have all kinds of it.
Oh, is there?
You just have to look at an air photo of downtown Truro and you'll see a sea of asphalt and there's not cars in all of it. So there is a lot of parking in this town and a lot of it's not being used.
On the, I'm just wondering what the definition, they talked about the traffic on Longworth. You had a AM peak and a PM peak. What's your definition of those two? What are the peak hours for the AM and the PM? Is it 8 to 10? Is it 7 to?
We'll just let Mr. Bent or Ms. Connolly speak to that. Okay.
So the AM peak is typically between 7 and 9.
Pardon me?
The AM peak is typically between 7 and 9 AM, and the PM peak would be between 4 and 6.
And is that, so if you say 19 on the AM peak, is that people that go from Roby all the way through to Prince, or is that people that just use part of Longworth? What are you counting when you count the 19?
That'd be trips from the development.
People exiting the building to go to work. They wouldn't all be going to the same place.
So it's nothing, the 19 and the 20 has nothing to do with the traffic already on Longworth.
It's not specific to a
It's
certain
not
street.
specific to Longworth, no.
It's the people that are going to be exiting this building during those hours.
Apologies. It's a two-way, so it's exiting and entering. So it's 19 two-way trips and 20 two-way
And
trips.
so when they exit the new building on those peak hours, the 19 and the 20, they may be exiting, I guess they're exiting obviously onto Roby Street. So
Yes.
for the 2 hours, for the AM peak, there's only going to be 19 additional vehicles for that 2-hour period because of this new building. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. That's what the,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, interesting, thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to take a minute to let Councillor McGrath jump in.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just on a lot of this talk about parking and the traffic and such. Many of you may not be regular watchers of council, but those of you who've been watching me, especially for the last 2 years, know that I have been arguing that we need to narrow the streets, eliminate some of the on-street parking, because these, I don't know if Ms. Connolly had one of the pictures in her slide. I don't know if you were able to bring that up in front of the retirement home there. There, we just went past it. That one there, just all the cars parked alongside it is an issue we run into every winter when people complain about the winter traffic ban, or the winter parking ban. A traffic ban would be lovely. A winter parking ban. And I have long argued that we should just narrow the roads and eliminate on-street parking entirely, give that space back to homeowners to either turn it into a driveway or turn it into a garden, which is probably what I would do with that extra space if I had it. I've also been a long proponent for public transit. Town and municipality of County of Colchester are currently investigating a joint public transit feasibility study. I encourage you to talk to all of your elected officials, whether you're a town or county, talk to your elected officials about public transit and why you think it would be beneficial. I've also been a long proponent of active transportation, and I can probably guarantee that I am the only person who biked here this evening, because when I got here, my bike was the only one at the rack. Mr. Andrew has parked his scooter at the bike rack and didn't block it for me. Thank you for that, Mr. Andrew. But most people are driving. So when we talk about the traffic, we all have to realize when we're driving, we are traffic. And if you want to reduce congestion, you have to reduce the number of cars on the road. And how we do that is by having developments that have walkability built in. I'll tell you, I hear from a lot of people younger than me, certainly, who can't afford a car. Simply put, just can't afford it. It's like, I can afford rent or I can live in a car. One or the other. We want, as Mr. Fox alluded to, we want to have units affordable. We want to keep the youth in our community. We want them to grow up here and establish their roots here. If we don't have things like public transit, if we require everybody to get around by private motor vehicle, they're off to Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, New York, somewhere. So that's my little soapbox rant on how we address congestion, and that's reducing the number of cars. And if you yourself are not one who is going to bike or take transit, think of everybody else who could, and how many more people that is off the road in front of you, reducing our congestion. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McGrath. Okay, we have time for a few more comments. Again, please use the microphone and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Hi. Anyway, talking about traffic, and my husband and I certainly know all about the traffic. We've been living on Roby Street for I don't know how many years. And previous to that, that residence that you have there right now in your picture used to be his home. So we're very familiar with the area. Also, as everyone knows here, the street is extremely busy. Roby Street is constantly busy. I find myself, there is one thing there that's really good on our street that the town has put in as a button there that you can push to flash to the drivers that they have to stop for those pedestrians. And it comes on George Street, yes, close to that.
Crossing at George.
So that is an exceptionally good idea to do that. Now, I'm wondering if it was bumped up a little bit more to 373 Roby, would that work better there than at the other, or have both? I don't know. I think traffic would really upset if there were two of them that close together. Yeah, they wouldn't want to stop that many times. They're in a hurry. So that might be a problem for you fellas to discuss and come up with an idea, and hopefully it will be a good one that will look after that.
Thank you. And
I just have one comment.
yeah,
The gentleman behind you, because of your windows, your balconies, the sun. I mean, I would have those facing southeast and southwest, so at least part of the day, especially in the winter when the sun's further to the south, you're gonna be in the shade way more. It just to gain amount of sun coming in your apartment, which most people enjoy. Those balconies, right, are facing north and east and west. It'd be so much better for most people to be facing, just to do a flip on them. I mean, that might sound good, easy on here, but.
That's a very good
I
observation.
don't know why you couldn't flip that over, so everybody's getting.
That's a very good
lots of
observation.
sun in their windows.
Yeah, I'll certainly discuss
Enjoy
that. Yep.
Just seems totally, and you get heat gain and everything. It's a win-win to have some sun coming in your patio doors.
Thank you. Thanks for raising that.
Say the what?
Go ahead, Ms. Bikini. Thanks. I don't know if the mic isn't really wonderful tonight, so just really just use your
Okay.
outside voice, but still the microphone.
My name is Kim Pocchini. I live on Giles Street, so just a little bit down from this development. And firstly, to the development applicants, my comment is not about the particular development, but rather the placement of this applicant in the location. So no aspersions on the property. It looks quite lovely. What I wanted to say is that, I don't know why I'm holding this up. I recognize fully that the development application falls within the urban corridor zone, and I appreciate that, but the reality is it also abuts directly with the general residential zone fairly heavily along the back side, left side, et cetera, right side, et cetera. And I think really what a lot of people are here for is to recognize the expectations of those neighbors in the general residential area. And in particular, I was reading today the municipal fun lunchtime reading. I was reading the municipal planning strategy, and there's this section in there that caught my eye, and it says, council intends that new development, and I recognize again that this is in the general residential area, but again, this heavily abuts the general residential zone. And I can say I particularly moved to this area 8 years ago because I was drawn by small houses, good-sized lots, and care of ownership on the street that I live on. And certainly a number of my neighbors are here, have lovely properties, but our properties also abut the urban corridor zone. And so looking forward in future, and as acknowledged by the developer here, we expect that this will be a problem for us again real soon. And that concerns me deeply because I moved to this neighborhood to have a small home community neighborhood. I lived in urban centers for many years in the shadow of big apartment buildings, at various points, and frankly, if I wanted that, as I said in the memo, in the email that I already sent, I'd still live there. I don't want to live in the shadow of an apartment building. That's why I chose to live where I live now. And I think that one of the things that caught my eye, again, in the municipal planning strategy is the section that says, council intends that new development should be context sensitive, in that it should not be so intensive in use or vary so much from established building form patterns or abutting or nearby properties that it has a significant negative impact on the quality of life of neighborhood residents. And so I'm not opposed to development at all. There are a number of multi-use structures in our neighborhood that are smaller in scale and to me completely acceptable in that context, but the notion of putting a really big building on a really small lot just really takes away from the purpose for which I, and I think many of my neighbors, chose to live in this area. So thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Hi, my name is Joe Andrew, live at 361 Roby. Just a couple of houses down from the development. The one thing that we're not thinking about in this development, I live across the street from the two seniors buildings that we have. There are ambulances in and out of there all the time, fire department, police department, all that comes in very odd hours and sometimes in huge rush hours, right? Will this affect them? Yes, it will. Because one, if we, as we all notice, on Longworth Avenue, there is no sidewalk there. if we have more congestion coming in off there or on Roby Street, they can't get in. You know, there's already too much parking over there and people using too much parking. We have a lot of seniors in there that would just love to be outside, and they try to be. But most of them on the two buildings are afraid to go out if there's any more traffic. Right? We have tried to safeguard them by putting a flashing light, right? And that's helped a lot. But if we're going to impede, right, all the different resources that this end actually uses a lot, right? Is that going to cause lives? I think it will. Anyway, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Burke, and I haven't heard a word of safety in regards to the tenants and the neighbors. And I bring that up because if you have your building on fire at that particular location and it's at the rear, I would like to know how a fire truck with a ladder on it gets in there and extends its pods or jacks so it can support it and not tip over while it's trying to fight the fire. So I don't think there's enough clearance. If the numbers here says, I believe it's 8.8 feet. With the jacks extended, you're going to be well beyond that. And I doubt if they put the ladder up with no support underneath the fire vessel.
Good evening. My name is Robert Poirier. I live at 90 Churchill Street, which is the property directly behind this proposed development. I agree with a lot of the comments that are being said, and I'm particularly pleased that there are so many residents that have come out this evening to express their concerns. It's clear that this is a project which is polarizing this neighborhood. What I'm concerned about two things here. So one, we are glossing over the fact that the developer is building on the corner of a floodplain. I've worked with Lindsay Development. They've employed some of the people through my organization. I'm not throwing any shade on them. However, as a project manager in ICI construction with nearly 20 years of experience, I can tell you two things. That flood mitigation system is only designed for optimal conditions. This town has a history of flooding. Climate change is affecting this town. And so it is not scaled. In my professional opinion, it is not scaled properly. And the developer is playing with fire. And it's my property, as well as the person behind me on Hingley, who is going to pay the price when he shrugs his shoulders and walks away and says it's not my problem. The second here is that no matter, and the architect has done a wonderful job, it's certainly better than the tarp that's on the building today. But the reality here is that no matter how you reconfigure the building, you're still causing everyone who is within line sight of that building to be a prisoner in their own home in the spring and summer because they won't feel comfortable going outside if they're being over-observed by someone in a 4-unit building. The second is that it doesn't matter how many gables, how many structures you put out front, it's incongruent with the neighborhood. And I'm glad that this individual here raised something that's in the town's own document. We're trying to blunt force trauma a very square peg into a round hole. And we can't get around that, no matter how many times we have revisions and how many times we have this conversation. It's not suitable for this neighborhood. And so I'm asking this committee, because I haven't seen anyone do that this evening, I'm asking this committee, out of respect for the long-standing residents of this community, to please reject this application with no conditions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Leah Poirier. I also live at 90 Churchill Street. I am wishing to comment on property values, resaleability, and the social impacts on longstanding residents of our community. Homeowners' property values and resale prospects are tied to perceived neighborhood desirability, which includes quiet streets, privacy, parking availability, and consistent scale of housing. A sudden large intensification at 373 Roby Street without appropriate buffering will make nearby homes less attractive. And that cost will be absorbed by us, the current residents. Longstanding residents, particularly seniors and families, will also be disproportionately affected because they rely on stable neighborhood features. There is a displacement risk, and this runs counter to the town of Truro's stated goals for sustainability and balanced growth. My son Owen Poirier, who is autistic and cannot participate in such meetings, sent an email asking Councillor Graham a very simple question, actually, and I was very pleased at his directness. It was simply, why would the rights of this developer and people who don't exist yet matter more than my rights as a current resident of this neighborhood who knows the neighborhood best?
My name is Emily Riley. I live at 28 Hingley Avenue. I am one of the general residential houses that abuts this property. And because this property, even though it's urban corridor, because it abuts my property, there are some additional considerations that are required in order to build on the property. And I don't believe that those conditions have been met by this new development. I know that Deputy Mayor Thomas spoke to that, but I don't believe that they've been met because the requirements are 3 stories and a significant distance away in order to make 4 stories. This is not a significant distance. So if I can indulge you for 2 seconds, the building is approximately 5.4 meters from my property line. And I am going to estimate that from where I am standing to the front is approximately 5.4 meters. So I need you to imagine standing where I am on my property line and having a building that is 4 stories that close. It doesn't matter how many gables. It doesn't matter the roof line. It doesn't matter the cladding. It doesn't matter the fencing. What matters is that that is a massive structure jammed on a tiny lot between houses. Not between developments, not between apartments, not between businesses. These are houses, these are homes. So I have made this offer as many times as I possibly can. I would love for the developer to take this property, turn it into a home, multiple units, move into one of them, join our neighborhood, we're wonderful. But this kind of a property is not that. So I would encourage the developer, take this property. You now have 2 really nicely developed units. Find another spot for them because they're absolutely worth it. It is not this property, and it is not this neighborhood.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if any other members of the committee wish to speak or respond to any concerns raised by residents. Oh, Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I don't know if I caught the gentleman's name, but he raised some concerns about the fire trucks. Ms. Connolly, I know in the staff report, I don't think it was in your report here, but in the staff report we have, this has been circulated with all departments, all staff, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, the only thing fire department said was they wanted the sprinkler connections at the front of the building accessible. And may I ask the developers, which of the, what building materials are you using? Is this a concrete or is this a wood build? Is this ICI construction? What are we using here?
It's likely a combination. Up to level 1 would be concrete, underground works, and then wood frame combustible construction is permitted. As I was mentioning before to Deputy Mayor Thomas, the non-combustible cladding is a requirement when you're within a certain range of a property line. It's very likely that we'll be doing that anyway. We're seeing that's the most common way of doing things now, especially for things this size. The other comment I'll make to address that fire department item before, once you're building this size, you must be sprinklered. So the fire pumps from the trucks get plugged into the Siamese connections that you're mentioning, and the entire building has sprinklers front to back.
Yeah.
And that's how they address not requiring a truck to get around to the back of the building.
Okay. And then with regards to the ladder truck specifically, and I certainly don't want to come across as if I'm an expert on this, but I have quizzed Chief Curry on this a number of times for some of the other developments. For a building like this, I imagine the ladder truck would probably still be in the road. It would have enough depth and reach to get to the back, and the 4-story building is likely fought on foot through with engines. They probably wouldn't have the ladder truck in here, but is it possible, Ms. Connolly or Mr. Fox, to possibly inquire of Chief Curry on this specifically and have that information available at the public hearing?
We can certainly pass along the comments that were received here tonight and have him address those. He typically does make comments if addressed during the public hearing. There is the opportunity for follow-up on that, but we will pass these along, or I will pass these along following this meeting.
Great, thank you. And then when we're talking about living in shadow, and certainly I've lived in some shadow and lived in buildings that probably cause some shadow, at the public engagement session that I was able to attend, the evening one, you did have a like a printout display thing of the shade study, but it is not included in tonight's report. Is that information available anywhere for people to be able to go and look, or for the committee or public to be able to reference?
We certainly have it available. Do you have it, Caroline?
What we might be able to do is, that was part of the application that was provided today, where I just was able to pull the site plan for the inclusion in tonight's presentation. What we could do is attach it as an addendum on the town's website in this section, like as an accompaniment to the report, so then people could see, because the shade study is also included in that, as well as some of the renderings that they supplied, so we can upload that to the website. Yes.
I think the shade study would be important to have, especially for the public hearing, because when I looked at that data at the session you held at the library, it didn't look as if it was egregious on the neighboring properties. Now, maybe I'm wrong, and I invite any of the other committee members who were there and who reviewed that data to contradict me, but I wasn't sure that I had major concerns over the shade. And again, regular watchers of me at council will know that this is something I have brought up numerous times. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Yeah, first of all, I believe your name is Stephen, is that correct? You spoke on the parking, and I'd just like to say I, too, have concerns about parking. And this committee here gets tired of me saying it, but when we talk about 0.5, in other words, you know, 1 car per 2 apartments, right? It worries me. And so I've asked that after a period of time, you know, when these buildings, and they do exist and are going up, that we take a look at how that is working. Is it true that you only in the downtown zone that you only need, you know, 0.5 parking per unit? It scares me, but I'm told that, no, don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. But we're going to find out. Right? At least I'm going to find out, because I'm going to be looking to see whether or not it meets those requirements. And so, you know, I like to see 1 parking spot per unit, like you're thinking. I like to see that. This is at 0.8. Yeah, it's better than 0.5. And that's all that's probably generally required in this zone, is just 0.5. It's 0.8 of a parking space per unit. So it exceeds that, you know. And generally it's just 0.5, but there's a calculation you go through according to the number of units, the size of those units, how many bedrooms they have, et cetera, to actually determine the number. And that's why I asked that, and it came out below that 0.8. So we meet the requirement, right? So I want you to know that. The other thing is I like the town planner, Mr. Fox, just to address us all in regards to the zoning of this and how this project fits into the zoning. Because when I look at it, and he can correct me if I'm wrong, when I look at it, this project fits the zoning, other than, because it meets the height requirement, and it also, even though it's 4 stories, it meets the height requirement, and I'm got questions about that myself, 36.1 feet, I believe it is, 4 stories within the height requirement, and it fits the setbacks requirements, except for the northeast corner of the building is 2 feet shy of meeting that requirement. Other than that, it meets all requirements. And I'm hoping that he will say that this is right or not right. I'm open to it. But I have to make my decision within the bylaws, that it's zoned under. I can't, I can't ignore those, because under appeal, it won't stand up if you try to appeal it. So, look, Mr. Fox, could you just explain how a building and the zoning and that whole appeal process and what wiggle room we have when it comes to development agreements, et cetera?
This is Carla's file, Ms. Connolly's file. I'm going to defer to her on
Thank
this.
you.
She's more familiar with the details around this particular proposal. You had a large number of questions at the end there. I think that your little wrap up was quite a few questions, and I'm not sure if I caught all those. I was thinking about my response. But yeah, perhaps if Carla can answer your questions around the zone requirements, and then I can address any outstanding questions you might have, or she can.
Yes, thank you for the question. So really, it's all laid out in the report, and it is staff's opinion, my opinion, after going through all of the applicable policies that apply to this development, that it does meet, as you already pointed out, it does meet all of the town's requirement. It fits in nicely, it creates those walkable communities. They were pointed all out here. Density, there are points that could create compatibility issues that the developer and the architect have gone a long way to address. When you see the previous submission, you see the current submission. So those, again, architectural elements, the bay, the projections, the balcony enclosures being tilted, all of the specific policies that were reviewed and applied to this development are included in the staff's report. It's 24 pages. It is a lot to read, I acknowledge that. It has been summarized here in today's presentation, but yes, it is my belief and my professional opinion that this application does meet the town's policies that apply.
Right, and what about the actual land use bylaws? Where does it come in regard to those?
Yeah.
Specific bylaws, that if this wasn't a development agreement and a developer wanted to build as of right, in other words, they had the right to build this. It's quite close to that as of right, is it not?
It is, you're right. And all of those actual calculations are they're all included, they're all laid out with the math in the report. That's policy IM22. It's on page 21 of the staff report too. So it all lays it out where, for example, the compatibility of the development with adjacent structures in terms of height, lot coverage, density, and bulk. So the actual calculations there of the density with 183 units per hectare versus what's there. And it is acknowledged that it exceeds the density that's currently in those neighborhoods with those smaller homes. It also acknowledges the height, the requirement of 11 meters. Now, it is kind of confusing for people maybe who don't do this as a job or every day. The height is actually measured mid-span. So when you have that gable roof, and you can see the gable roof on the picture up there, it's not measured to the peak. The peak is going to be taller. We do this for all developments, the height is measured mid-span. So when you have a triangular gable roof, it's the middle of the triangle that the height goes to. So that's the 11 meters is taken from that distance, and that's applied no matter if it's a development agreement or through a building permit application. So yes, all of that is included in the report, and absolutely, if anybody after the fact would like to follow up on any of these points, you can absolutely reach out to me at any point. We're going to have a public hearing, regardless if the Planning Advisory Committee support the recommendation or they don't. It will still go to the public hearing, and you still will have another opportunity to provide comment, as well as the public survey will remain open up until that point as well.
I guess and also, so for general understanding, as a counselor, following the public hearing, I'll have to make a decision on it. And let's say I decide to vote against it because of all the factors that you've talked about. And then the developer takes it to the Utility and Review Board for a hearing. And what will happen is it will get turned over. And the reason is it meets just about every requirement that it has to, according to the land use bylaw. So your real concerns are the fact that it's an urban core zone. Your concern is that it's zoned for this kind of intensity and that you don't want that. And we had those discussions. I'm trying to be just open with you, not pull any punches here, just absolutely open with you. We had those discussions 2 years ago. Is it 2 years ago, Mr. Fox? And so there's a lot of angst across the town, you know. Well, it's urban corridor and I'm in general residential. How is that going to affect me, et cetera? And so this is, in the end, was a decision, you know, these corridor roads leading in and out of town, that they would be densified. And this is what this looks like. This is reality. This is what, you know, intensification on these streets will look like. And so to the developer, you know, that's all he was trying to say. This is what it's going to look like, because this is what the zoning is. It's unfortunate, you know. So what you can do is I don't know, is appeal the zoning, perhaps, you know, or whatever. But you know, that's a long process. So I'm just, you need to be informed, right, of your choice, and I want you to be informed of what my choice has to be, right? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Thomas. Okay, Planner Connolly, do you mind just bringing up the slide again of where we are in the process, just so everybody can see that? And again, as reminded several times, there is still a public hearing. We are now at the step 3, being the staff recommendation, which is presented to this committee. If you want to just maybe pull that up, I think it might be the next slide. So what we've been provided with, either to amend or to, we don't have to use this language. If we don't like it, we can add to it or take away from it. But this is what staff has provided for us, so that the committee approves with conditions, so that we provide to council the suggestion to enter into a development agreement with the developer to permit a 4-story multi-unit residential development consisting of up to 44 dwelling units and 36 parking spaces on lands at 373 Roby Street, subject to the developer submitting a stormwater management plan and landscaping plan to the town. Does anyone on the committee wish to amend any of those terms, or would somebody like to put a motion on the floor that would put this forward? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Delorier. We have a motion. Would somebody like to second the motion? Councillor McGrath, thank you. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Councillor Graham.
I would like to start by sharing my appreciation to the developer. I feel you've listened very well. You've done your best. It is a beautiful development. And I appreciate the interactions that you've had with councillors and with community members. That being said, I will not be supporting the motion this evening. I've given it very careful consideration. The reason I will not be supporting the motion is because of several policies that I do respectfully disagree with our planning department. They are policies UC 10, which talks about complementing or enhancing the area. I again respectfully disagree with our planning department. I do not believe that this development does that. It's policy UC 10. Policy UC 18 pose minimal risk of land use conflicts. I see a lot of conflict in this development with the current residents and the way that the residents are currently enjoying their land. Policy UC 19 talks about enhancing and established and intact neighborhoods. Again, I respectfully disagree with our planner. I don't believe that it does enhance the area. There's finally policy IM 22, compatibility of the proposed land with adjacent land uses. And that is the one that I feel is the biggest sticking point, in that it does abut the general residential area, and therefore I don't think it is compatible with the adjacent lands being the residential zone. So on top of all of that, I also feel that the development has too much lot coverage. And I don't think that it is aesthetically pleasing to have such a large-scale development taking up that much land in one area where it is surrounded by other residential areas, residential homes that are much smaller on larger lots. So the, what is the word I'm looking for? The what? The proportion is I'm struggling with that. So for all of those reasons, for the bylaws that I've pointed, or policies that I've pointed out, I will not be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This one is a conflict for sure. I mean, we have what Councillor Graham has brought up about what she believes is a conflict with the land use bylaws. We have what the Deputy Mayor has brought up with Ms. Connolly about the policies that do support, how this does support the land use bylaws, that this is not very far off from what would be allowed as of right. This is certainly a difficult one. Right now, I feel that I am going to support the motion. However, I would like to say that I reserve the right to not support the development once it's at council, because quite frankly, this one has a lot of question marks in my head still. I would like to see where this is going to go. But this is a contentious and difficult one for sure, and minds are not currently made up, but I will support the motion this evening. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thomas.
I'd just like a clarity for all of us. In regards to, because I think there's been some misuses of the words land use bylaws and policy. Could you clearly define those? Because I think when it comes to policy, those are just policies, and not just policies. They're important policies, but they're policies. And you could argue that it doesn't fit some of those policies. But when it comes to the land use bylaw, the hard facts of, how tall a fence should be, how far a building has to be from someone's yard, how tall can the building be, how many doors do you have to have, all those things, a setback from the road, all those things, those are bylaws. And so I'd just like you to talk about those. As far as the bylaws are concerned, we've already heard that it pretty much meets everything except one small setback at the back of the property. Could you just
You've just said it very well, Deputy Mayor. Very well. The policies essentially are contained in the town's municipal planning strategy. They're two separate documents. They're commonly referred to as the town's planning documents. There's the planning strategy that has all the policies in it. It has the statements of where the town wants to go. We want to see compatible development. We want to see aesthetically pleasing development. We want to see walkable communities, that kind of thing. How the heck do you do that? Well, you do that in the land use bylaw, as Deputy Mayor already pointed out. It's the nuts and bolts of how those things, the policies, are achieved and accomplished. So it is having setbacks that are appropriate for the type of development and to achieve the goals which the policies want to achieve. So again, in the report, it does set out what those requirements are, and the report speaks heavily to the policies because the development will we still look at the land use bylaw requirements, and those are in policy IM 22, again, in the report. And it is important to balance where where the development lands when you hold it up against the land use bylaw requirements. And this report has done it. It has also identified, to Deputy Mayor's point, where it does not specifically meet those requirements, and it talks about where it does. So both things are accomplished, and it's up to council and this committee, I guess, and the recommendation to what they feel is best for the implementation of the town's municipal planning strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Planner Connolly. Okay, last time there, Councillor McGrath.
Appreciate that, Madam Chair. Ms. Connolly, just a follow-up on the Deputy Mayor's questions, because though we may disagree often, he does often give me new questions to ask, so I thank him for that. When it comes to the policies, when we look at, well, this policy, you know, the development is supported by this policy, this policy, this policy. We also have, oh, it is this policy, it doesn't support. Is there such a thing as a development that meets all policies? Is it possible for the policies to conflict, if it'll meet this policy but not that policy? Yeah, you're nodding your head, yeah.
Yeah, that happens all the time. It may
Happens
not
all
meet
the time.
100% of the policies. Correct.
So what the deputy mayor is saying, basically, when we come to land use bylaws, this is the hard and fast. The facts it must meet, but the policies are more general guidelines on what we're trying to accomplish, and there may be conflict amongst the policies.
Well, there's two things happening there. When it has to be held up against the land use bylaw requirements, because we are going through the development agreement process, there is flexibility in the application of those land use bylaw requirements, which is why we can say it comes really close to meeting that setback requirement, but it doesn't meet it exactly. And because we're doing a development agreement, council has the ability to say, well, you're pretty close, and you've incorporated all of these other elements which we expect to offset any potential negative consequences. We're going to allow you to build it like that. If you were just going to apply for a building permit to do that, we would have to say no in the planning department because you don't meet the bylaw requirements.
Right, perfect. Thank you for that clarification.
We are just getting to the. Yes, I think you're sort of getting back to the traffic and the crosswalks and that kind of stuff. And I certainly think that's been well spoken about this evening. And, you know, we do have our engineer here. Those things are all, you know, part of the next step of the process as well. So don't feel as though you have no opportunity to speak anymore. I think at this point, we have a motion on the table, so we'd like to get to the point at which there is a discussion about amongst the committee, but then eventually a vote, so we can move on to our next application. So is there further discussion? Yes.
Just explain one last time how that public hearing, and then it goes to council for an actual vote. If you could just explain so everyone understands that they can come to a public meeting and talk about their concerns.
Yes, and I mean, you know more about that than I do, because that's the point at which I'm no longer involved. But yes, there is a public meeting which will be announced, that will be posted on the website. It will be advertised on Facebook and other communications from the town. It will be another opportunity for the public to speak about the project before council. Council has the final decision. Council's decision does not need to align with this committee's decision. Yes, Councillor Graham?
While council's decision does not necessarily need to align, a considerable amount of weight is given to the recommendation that does come from this committee.
Absolutely. Certainly didn't want to, I mean, this committee does most of the work on the project. That's why we've seen so much change based on the comments of the committee. And again, as Councillor Graham said, the developer has been very open to the feedback, which I think a lot of the committee members have appreciated. We don't always see that. So yes, again, similar to the staff members' recommendation, it isn't binding on the committee. The committee's decision is not binding on council. Both of those things carry weight respectively. So, you know, the planner's work and recommendation would carry weight to the committee, just as the committee's recommendation would carry weight to council. Okay. Would anyone like to call for the question? Okay. All those in favor of the motion being to approve the recommendation put forward by staff to approve the development with the conditions listed, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any of those contrary to the proposal, please signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? No. Okay, so we have everybody voting in favor, except for Councillor Graham voting opposed. Okay, thank you. So that concludes this item on the agenda. And next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we will move to the 423 Roby Street development. Okay, thanks, everybody. We're going to move on now to the next item on our agenda, which is step 2 of an application process for development agreement by 4349937 Nova Scotia Limited, located at 423 Roby Street. And this, I believe, is Planner McPherson's file. So please go ahead.
Hey, thank you very much, Madam Chair. And, good evening to everybody who's still here, in person and online. This is the development agreement application for 423 Roby Street. We have the applicant here, Charlie Corey. So this application was originally made in April of 2023 by South Star Properties to develop 4 segmented multi-unit residential buildings containing approximately 355 dwelling units. So this meeting is for step 2 of the process, which is initial community engagement. And in this meeting, the Planning Advisory Committee has the opportunity to review changes made by the applicant based on the original feedback, and the public is invited to provide feedback as well. The subject land is located between Marshland Drive and the residential portion of Roby Street, neighboring the Service Masters and B&D Glass businesses. The surrounding area is primarily residential neighborhood of single-family or semi-detached homes in between downtown Truro and the Hub Mall. This is an excerpt from the future land use map showing the subject property's future land use designation as urban growth here in purple. And then there's also a small portion that's designated as urban corridor, that little pink strip down at the bottom of the image here. And similarly, here's an excerpt from the zoning map showing that the subject property is zoned as urban growth, as well as it has the floodway overlay on it, and then that small strip of urban corridor down at the south of the property. So here's a view of the subject lands taken from the center of the property looking south, so out towards Roby Street. And here's a view taken from Marshland Drive of the property looking south across the entire lot. So this is the site plan of the proposal. So it features 4 5-story multi-unit residential buildings along a central road with parking behind and beneath the buildings. A tree retention area is proposed along the south side of the property, which is where most of the existing trees are currently found. Landscaping is also shown, including a pedestrian access path and sidewalks. So in the previous meeting, the committee discussed an existing gravel loop that provides access for residents along Roby Street And the applicant had indicated that the approach going forward would be to retain that existing loop for the same purpose that it's used for now, which would leave out the pathway that was proposed in the last meeting. There was a pedestrian walkway that would have connected out to Roby Street. So the sidewalk that goes towards Roby Street on the east end of the lot here, so up here, would be retained. So that would be the way that pedestrians would access Roby Street from the development. And so a site plan showing how this loop would be implemented would be required as part of step 3, but just for the purpose of understanding how it would generally be laid out, this image shows a red arrow, sort of keeping that existing loop the way that it would be. So this plan gives an indication of the general layout of the rooms, and there is also a plan for the underground parking. So there's parking provided outside of the buildings as well as underground. And in total, there are 112 one-bedroom units, 207 two-bedroom units, and 36 three-bed units. And just to highlight, this is the latest information for parking. So the preliminary number is 478 total parking spaces, which leads to a ratio of 1.34 spaces per unit for 355 units. 264 would be indoor and 214 would be surface. So there are some new renderings. So this rendering shows the overall design and massing of the development, as well as some of the existing buildings, which are represented here in gray. In this rendering, you've seen it before, it shows the overall massing and the basic design of the proposal for Marshland Drive. So you have the 5-story multi-unit buildings that have a concrete podium, it leads up to a guard, and then these continuous wood balconies that you can see here marked. And this rendering is set in the middle of the multi-unit buildings, and it shows how the municipal right-of-way would serve as a connection between Roby Street and Marshland Drive. And one of the requests from the Planning Advisory Committee was to include renderings that are taken from a more on-the-ground perspective, and this is one of them. So here we have a lookout from Roby Street, and here's the other side, so from Marshland Drive. And I can go back to those. I'll just show you this one again for a moment. So one of the challenges of developing this site is that there's a sanitary sewer line that runs diagonally across the property. And since it's impractical to have the buildings built directly over the line, the applicant has provided a sanitary sewer a sanitary sewer relocation plan that would replace a portion of the line to align with the proposed road running through the property. So I'm going to show you here. It's a little bit detailed of a map, but there's a sanitary sewer line that runs across like this. And so the idea would be that you would essentially cut it off, replace it, run it along the road here, and then connect back up here before it reaches the other end of Marshland Drive, which is where it connects to the county's sewer line. Moving on to the enabling policy. So this is policy UG35, and it's the policy that enables council to consider this proposal. And step 3 of this process will include a full policy review, considering the policies that apply to this proposal. In terms of public participation, development application notice sign will be posted on the subject land soon. Information will be updated on the town's website under active development applications following this meeting, and a mail-out will be sent to the property owners within 150 meters of the subject lands as part of step 3. In terms of next steps, the next step in this process is the 3rd PAC meeting, which includes a staff report that will outline any changes based on the feedback received, as well as the full policy review. The step after is the public hearing, which is where council makes a final decision regarding the development, and that concludes my presentation. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Planner McPherson. One thing that was discussed from some of the members of the public at the last meeting were some access points to the rear yards of the properties on Roby that neighbored the entryway. Has there been any Was that sort of what you were referring to? I think it was more like people pulling their vehicles in behind to park in the back of their properties, if I recall correctly.
I don't know if the applicant would like to comment.
Mr. Corey, do you know if anything's been discussed about that, or?
Neighbors had mentioned that they use that rear to enter for their properties on a regular basis, and they said there were some right-of-ways there. After first I'd heard of it, after...
Do you want to move your microphone a little closer to you?
Sorry. After that meeting, I asked my lawyer and looked into what right-of-ways were in place, and there was actually a right-of-way in favor of this property along 423, where you see the proposed sidewalk there. But in simple, it's not difficult for us to accommodate the neighbors in the development, so I suggested that we put a road through there that would enter from 423 and loop out the other way. It may be a one-way only, but it would give them access to the back of their lots.
And just for clarity, you have 2 points at which you front on Roby.
Correct.
So when you say 423, is that where the red arrow is originating?
The end of the arrow.
The end of the arrow,
Yeah.
okay. So like by the word loop there?
No, the opposite end.
Okay, okay, so,
So,
sorry, I would
yeah,
call that
you
the
would
beginning
enter
of
from-
the arrow.
You would enter from the center of the lot there and loop around and exit from the top.
Okay, thank you.
And for like Service Master, they would go down that entrance and it would have access in the same way.
Okay, thank you. Oh, sorry, my iPad. Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Corey, for being back here. I'm going to poke a bit more about the new road to maintain the existing loop. Last meeting, we chatted a lot about the pedestrian access. I love the idea of the footpath. That footpath has now become a road. Obviously, I understand why the residents have that as they use that for accessing their properties. I appreciate you accommodating them. But now we have the difficulty of we have motor vehicles and pedestrians all trying to use the same space. Is there enough room there for this one-way road and a sidewalk in order to maintain pedestrian safety?
Possibly and ideally. The odd thing is the road right now is on the neighbor's property. It's not on this property. I'm not a legal expert. I'd have to consult with them with regards to if a road with a single sidewalk could be incorporated, and if it can't be, I would have no reason to be opposed to that.
Right. I don't know, I thought that after we had the discussion last meeting that you were supposed to go and consult with legal and come. I was expecting more. I was expecting more. I guess I was expecting answers to some of those questions that we've already asked. So that concerns me. Also, I notice, well, we've got this slide up, you and I had discussed the accessible parking that is as far away from the entrance to the roadway or the trail as it can possibly be. That probably should have been moved as well. It doesn't, basically, I guess what I'm trying to get at, it doesn't sound like you've addressed a lot of the things that we had discussed fully. At least I don't see that represented in these diagrams. And
I'm sorry, the parking or the loop?
Both. The parking that we had discussed doesn't look like that has been moved. The loop, it sounds like you still don't have answers. And I don't mean to be blunt, sir, but we have to ask these tough questions.
No, I mean,
to make sure.
you'd mentioned the parking. The parking is 150 feet from Roby Street. With regards to noise, that's the public parking that'll be used primarily during the daytime, I would assume, for a pond. So the concern for noise at night would be minimal. As for the biggest thing that came out of the last meeting to me last time was the neighbor's concern for access, and I believe we've addressed that.
The neighbor's concern for access was definitely a major concern, one that we expected legal, advice on. And what it sounds like right now, there's still a lot of questions. Like, hopefully there's enough room for a sidewalk. And I was hoping for an actual.
Well, I mean, my priority was a road. The sidewalk, to me, was secondary, given there's already a sidewalk at the top there, which isn't far and is closer to the parking lot. And the direction I see this going is the top there is the primary access. I don't want to see personally random cars pulling into that one-way loop.
Right.
I don't think the neighbors want to see that either.
I don't think so either, no. When I mentioned the parking, Ms. McPherson, can you use your fancy little highlight tool to click on the 2 accessible parking spaces for me to highlight, because I don't think I'm being understood. So right there, we've got 2 accessible parking spaces. Accessibility is very important. I not only sit on, but I chair the Regional Accessibility Advisory Committee. This is very important to me. Mr. McPherson, would you also be able to highlight the entrance to the trail so that we can show how far the accessible parking is from the entrance to said trail? Because it's about as far away from the entrance as you can get and about as inaccessible as you can get. No, the
I'm
other
asking
side.
you, if
No,
I'm understanding,
up.
sorry.
No. Underneath the left-right arrows where that parking
I
lot,
think the 2
that's the one.
handicap
That's,
spots, accessible spots there on the entry to the public parking, are you suggesting just to move those to be in the middle?
it depends, I guess, on what your intention is of those accessible parking spaces. Are they for people to access the walking trail? If so, it should be right next to the entrance to the walking trail.
I agree, but I've never noticed those spots.
Okay. I mentioned it last meeting, so if you can address that
I may
as
have
well.
misunderstood you then.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's why we have multiple steps, make sure we can understand each other and we can continue to have the discussions. To be clear, for the next meeting, I would really like to see the updated renderings that show where this road is actually going instead of just an arrow added on top of there. Want to know if it's going to have room for pedestrian access for a proper sidewalk, because I was very happy with the pedestrianization. I'm big on walkability, want this to be an accessible, walkable, neighborhood. When you have lots of people out enjoying the space, those tend to be safer spaces, more enjoyable spaces, higher property value spaces. So I'd like to be able to see that and know that we are not, shoving pedestrians to the wayside once again. The Traffic Authority is with us this evening. Mr. Bent, back to you again. The previous meeting, I don't believe you were here for this one, I had mentioned other development agreements where your predecessor had indicated that access to Marshland Drive would generally be frowned upon or disallowed for those development agreements, but apparently would be allowed here. And I didn't understand that contrast, especially given that this driveway appears to exit into the 70-kilometer-an-hour zone on Marshland Drive as opposed to the slower 50-kilometer-an-hour zone. Can you advise why the access to the property here would be more amenable, I guess, than to elsewhere on Marshland Drive?
So I can't speak entirely to my predecessors, but I would say that it was because there was an existing road there already was the reason why that would be an appropriate location for there to be one.
Mm-hmm.
Whether the alignment and connection points to Marshland's controlled access portion is still under review, and we have to wait for the traffic study before we can say anything for sure on that.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, and again, we've had some misunderstandings already, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding properly. We're saying that this access to the property from Marshland may or may not be even feasible? Is that what I...
Or how it's oriented. Like, it may be entrance only, it may be exit only, it may be both. It also depends on if it's going to be a public road or a private lane. But all of those things are dependent on the traffic study and the results from that before I can comment on it too much.
Okay, so it is possible that we can have the roadway there. We're just not sure what that point may look like.
Yeah, another option could be that if it's going to be a public lane, there may be an option for it to be internal only, so it's not treated as a throughfare.
Okay. I'd like to ask some questions about the sewer detour, I guess that sewer line. And I don't know if you're, in your capacity as traffic authority, you also do any sewer engineering. But I'm just concerned that we've added extra distance to 2 points that are, those other 2 points aren't going to move. Are we going to have a negative impact on the slope and flow through this sewer detour? Because we've added length, but we haven't changed the slope.
Right. So we would have to That's been submitted. I believe my director has been looking at that, and so I don't know for sure the length change, so I can't speak to that. But that is obviously something that we need to evaluate and be confirmed before we can say anything.
And what would be the process for that review? Is that that wouldn't be part of stormwater management necessarily, but that would be...
It would be part of our servicing. It's not servicing for their site, but it is something that we have to approve. We've given a preliminary approval for it, I would say, but a final approval we'd have to do.
Okay, and then has your department reviewed the stormwater management or flood proofing requirements yet? Has that been submitted?
We haven't had that yet.
You don't have that yet. Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Yeah, I have a few concerns as well. There's 355 units is being proposed, and that's a lot of units that are close to the downtown and close to grocery stores, et cetera. And I see this as a large number of units, and that we can't tell you to do this, but I would like to ask at this point, but we're moving towards that, but I'd like to ask you to consider maybe 10% or so would be affordable. And to do that, you could apply to the federal government for, a lower interest rate loan that would offset the cost of offering these for, a 10-year period or whatever. And so I'd like you to consider that. This is a lot of units close to the downtown, and I'd ask that you consider that. So that's a request on my part, and for affordable housing for people, because we desperately need affordable housing, good housing, as good as your neighbors, but at a lower price, right? And nobody needs to know you're getting it a little lower, right? And it's just an excellent way to handle that situation. We just went through a hearing, not a hearing, sorry, but a talk about a 44-unit dwelling on Roby Street, and a lot of people concerned about traffic. A lot of people concerned about traffic, and here now we're talking about 355. This absolutely dwarfs that, and so I would just like some consideration here in regards to the traffic on Roby Street. I drove that today. I hope you don't mind, but I drove in that access road, and it's not wide enough for two cars at this point. I probably could be made wide enough, et cetera. And the other one that's leading in, the one that's further west, is very steep. It comes off and drops very quickly, and it's kind of hard to come out of. And so some real thought needs to be put into this, and that leads me, I'm going to ramble for a minute here. That leads me to, this is a new municipal street. I guess that means that we're paying for it. And if we're paying for it, I don't know if I want to pay for a dead-end street.
Sorry,
because
Counselor,
that's what I'd like it to be.
Counselor, we don't pay for the street. The street gets built, turned over to the municipality, just so you're aware.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's
Deputy Mayor, my apologies.
That is very good news, because I wouldn't want to pay for it. The thing is that I'd like to see it, if possible, some consideration in the traffic study to take a look at, let's say if we closed it off and made it just onto Marshland Drive and not onto Roby Street, and what effect would that have on traffic flow, et cetera. And I just don't want the traffic study to look at what's being proposed by the developer. I'd like the traffic study to look at, okay, let's say we close off Marshland Drive and just have it go on Roby Street. Let's say we close off Roby Street and just have it on Marshland Drive. And what happens if we do both? Do you follow what I'm saying? So that we have a clear understanding of what is the best choice when it comes to traffic.
Yep. And those are some of the comments that I've already given to the consultant doing the traffic study, is that we'd like them to look at all potential scenarios for that street or road and the impacts of this traffic on both, considering Marshland is controlled access and Roby Street, the increased number of traffic, and whether it's one-way, two-way, one's closed,
Yeah.
vice versa. So,
Yeah.
Yep.
Because in my world, just looking at it, I'd like to see it just a one entrance off Marshland Drive and close the ones onto Roby Street. Okay. The other thing is, and I have another question about who's paying for the sewer line. Is that the same answer I received for the road? Thank you very much. So the developer will be paying for the adjustment to the sewer line. the biggest thing was last time and still is for me is that we're building on a 1 in 20 floodplain, and you know, there's a glass business there, and so I went and talked to them. I said, you know, what's happening here when it comes to flood? And they said, well, we're mostly dry, you know, but in the last 30 years or so, there's been 2 major storms, and we know what those happen. And she pointed on the interior door of the building inside where the water was, and it was about 1.5 feet up, you know. And so when it does flood there, it's major. And this building is not raised to the 1 in 100. It sits, from what I can see, it just sits on the 1 in 120. And it hasn't been built up to 3.5 inches above the 1 in 100 floodplain. So it's vulnerable. Then I say, okay, well, what about the buildings down on Haywood Court? A lot of those are on the 1 in 120, and I don't know the elevation of those. And so where I'm leading to in all of this, and I love engineers, you know. So I'd like to see there will be an engineer study done, and they'll show the topographical lines, and they should be done so that there's a line showed every 0.8 of a foot, and an understanding of where the water's going to flow and where it's not going to flow. I'm really interested in seeing that. So my question is to the planning department, can we make exceptions and say that a project can be approved but can't go forward without a stormwater management plan showing the direction of water, because where water is going to flow off of this property if there's a flood, you know, what's going to happen. My understanding, and I'd like someone to comment on this, so I'll stop after this comment because I'd like someone to tell me about, is this going to be a balanced, you know, cut and fill approach to this? It's on the 1 in 120. Is that what's going to happen here? Is it a balanced cut and fill project? Or can you bring soil in? It's on the 1 in 120. So when I did my reading, it wasn't exactly clear, but I would say the answer is no from my reading.
There has to be a balanced cut and fill on site according to our bylaws.
Right.
That means you have to bring it up to the 1 in 100, 1 in 20 elevation with using a balanced cut and fill approach. After the 1 in 20 elevation up to the 1 in 100, you're allowed to use off-site material for flood-proofing purposes only. So that would be just around the base of the buildings. I think what you're looking for would be detailed stormwater management and flood mitigation plan, and that's going to be a requirement of this process. Whether that's a requirement from this committee to see before you're prepared to make a recommendation.
I'm thinking council.
Or whether council requires it before they make a decision, or whether council requires it before we issue or enter into a development agreement. Those are your 3 options with respect to when you ask for a stormwater management and flood retention plan. But that'll be absolutely be a requirement of any development in the floodplain.
Right, so I'd like you to consider my thought there, you know, that council review this before approval, and you know, I'll go with your recommendation, but I'd like to.
This committee should consider that, not me, but you should ask the committee to consider that.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, I'd ask us to consider that, Chair, because this is the first time we're doing a major project like this on 1 in 20. And to me, you know, I want to know where that water's going. I want a greater understanding before I just say yes to such a project as this. You know, there's going to be some balance, cut and fill. The project kind of fills the lot in many ways. So where's that cut going to come from? For instance, there's water already sitting essentially where that parking lot is. That's close to Roby Street. That's about 3 inches of water right now, you know. So, you know, there's a lot of water on the property, not much in fact, it slopes from Marshland Drive towards
Councillor, I think our Deputy Mayor Thomas, I think what you'll find is that a lot of your questions would be answered when we receive that document. Probably don't have to go into detail at this stage.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I think I've stressed the fact that I'm concerned about it. And I also want to know about its effect on Haywood Court, those houses on the east side of Haywood Court, you know, right? Because all those seem to be built on the 1 in 20.
Deputy Mayor Thomas, I'm hearing from you that you'd like the stormwater management report to be provided to this committee before we make a recommendation. Is that right?
No,
No?
that might slow things up, but this committee can say, recommend to council, is that true, Mr. Fox? Can recommend to council that this has to be submitted.
That your recommendation would be contingent upon the receipt
of that.
Receiving
Right.
that report.
To make that, for
Same as-
council to make its decision.
Yep.
Same as we just did in the last recommendation from Planner Connolly.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
May I note here that the stormwater management plan was available for the last meeting? And this is the second time you bring it up, and this second time that I
don't see any topographical lines, or.
I don't know if there's supposed to be topographical lines, but I know that that's what I ordered and that's what they provided.
So I can provide some comment on that. So there is a site grading plan that was submitted. So it contains some features of, and it's preliminary, but it contains some features like ditches that.
I haven't seen it.
And retaining walls that would serve for the purpose of moving water. But I wouldn't say that typically when there's a stormwater management and flood mitigation plan submitted, it contains some calculations and some additional information.
Okay, well, I'll leave it with the planning department and the developer to come up with the request. Yeah.
Thank you. I know Councillor McGrath, Graham, you've been waiting. The only thing I would like to just pop onto on the topic of the stormwater management and flood mitigation is a little bit of discussion about the pond, which is a lovely feature. And if someone could look into whether there are fencing requirements, because I think that's something that the committee would like to know about before we approve a project on the basis of it looking so attractive only to require a chain link fence around the pond. So that would be nice to sort out beforehand.
And Chair, just one last thing that's in my notes here. Yeah, it's about the building. We're at stage 2, and I would like to have seen more as to what the building will really look like. Because when I look at from Marshland Drive, I don't want to be rude, but it doesn't look very residential. It looks like maybe a medical clinic or a medical research clinic or something like that. It doesn't look to me very residential. And I people might pull in there thinking they're going into a research institute. So I think it needs some design improvements. It's personal, it's subjective, but that's my comment to you, sir.
Thank you for your patience, Councillor Graham.
Well, I'm just going to reiterate the Coles Notes version of what Councillor Thomas said. I, too, am going to require quite a bit of an education, I think, on the stormwater management plan. I feel a big responsibility to this area for flooding. It has a history of flooding. There's a lot of water there. So I, too, would like to have some more information about that before I could really make any kind of recommendation to council. The other thing is, again, repeating some of what Councillor Thomas said, I really am struggling with these diagrams and these renderings. They really haven't changed much, I don't think, to the best of my recollection from step 1, and really I can't make any decisions just looking at this type of presentation. There's just not
I'd like to see, because that's the first I've heard of it.
Okay. I would like to have an understanding of the types of materials that are going to be used, the look, the feel, I agree too, it does not look very residential to me. It could, again, be any kind of building. There's not a lot of character highlighted here. And
I like it, and the architect, I think, likes it. In terms of material selection, we haven't gotten to that stage.
no, maybe that's a bit preliminary. Maybe that is a bit too soon to really know that, but it's a long way from anything that I would see as being inviting to our town at this point.
Okay.
And pardon me?
Stage 2, I think it's still stuck at stage 1, and to think that we'd move from here to stage 3.
It's a big leap.
It's too big of a leap.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to articulate. Thank you.
Madam Chair, just for a point of clarity, because we have Deputy Mayor asking for stormwater management when it goes to council, and then Councillor Graham's asking for it to come to the committee. So I think to be fair, we need to know at what stage are we asking for a stormwater management plan to be submitted by the developer. I believe it, so.
I don't know that it, I wasn't saying that it needed to come any sooner than council, but I need to have a lot of reassurance personally.
No, okay, I just need some clarity because before you could recommend it to council, but.
Before I can recommend it to council, I will need to have a pretty clear understanding. So I guess, maybe that does mean that it comes here first.
But again, that could significantly slow down the process, so we just need some clarity.
Yeah. Whatever the will of the committee is fine with me, but it does seem very complicated, this one.
Okay, well, when Deputy Mayor Thomas was suggesting it, I was going to suggest we had maybe a vote on it. So if you would like to put that forward, Councillor Graham, that the project not be recommended by this committee until this committee receives the stormwater management plan, you can do that.
Well, I think we should consider Councillor Thomas's suggestion first.
Yeah, I would make a motion, then I would make a motion that a stormwater management plan, including topographical lines, et cetera, and showing the flow of water and all that's required through a proper stormwater management plan when you're dealing on a 1 in 20 floodplain, be submitted prior to the public hearing before council, so that council has that information when it makes its decision.
Okay, so just to be very clear.
Mr. Fox,
yeah, I just have some concern with, I'm not sure, this would be more appropriate to be included in the recommendation when you're actually voting on the proposal. So I think it's clearly understood by the applicant that he needs to provide this information. We've communicated that, but I think the appropriate place for this requirement, it's a condition upon your approval, should be tied to your recommendation, not an independent standalone recommendation or motion.
Because we're leaving it up to the steps subsequent to ours, whereas I think there was discussion about.
So I think you're free to make that motion as a condition upon when you vote on this application at the next meeting or whatever, or the 2 meetings from now. So if you bring it back and you want them to come back at step 2 still, then when you finally get to step 3, when you make your recommendation, include the requirement that the stormwater management plan be required prior to it going to public hearing.
Okay, perfect.
And Planner McPherson will know that needs to be part of whatever recommendation he puts forward. Thank you. Okay, Councillor McGrath. Oh, sorry.
On that. So this committee will be making a recommendation to council, potentially without having the stormwater management plan and without having had the opportunity to review it?
We don't typically review them.
No, we don't. You're correct.
Yeah, same as the last application, we included that as a condition.
But council will be requiring it. That's part of your recommendation is that council require that before it goes ahead.
Okay.
Before they vote on it.
Okay.
Okay, Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I find myself somewhat confused. Mr. Corey, didn't you say that you already had a stormwater management plan submitted?
Apparently, it's not a complete plan.
It's not a complete plan, because I believe I asked Mr. Bent if it had been reviewed. That was one of my questions, was the stormwater management plan or the flood proofing plan reviewed? So I've heard you say that it was not yet reviewed. Now you've said one has been provided, but it's apparently incomplete. And now I am somewhat confused state of where we are with this plan. If it hasn't been reviewed, how do we know that it's incomplete?
I believe it's mostly a topographical map with grading on it, which doesn't come to Public Works for review for a stormwater management plan. So Public Works has not reviewed it. Engineering Public Works has not reviewed that.
Okay, so we have a topographical map. We do not have a stormwater management plan.
Correct.
But as per our usual process, as we just did with, 373 Roby Street, one of the requirements, one of the conditions of approval when we make a recommendation to council is a stormwater management plan has been approved or reviewed and approved by the town's engineering department, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. So I think, Mr. Corey, thank you for coming today. I don't know if there's anybody here who wishes to speak, but I think maybe because we would like you to come back again, subject to the committee. If anybody disagrees with this, please let me know. What I'm hearing is that we would like you to come back, just one moment there, please, to the committee at the same stage we have been at this evening, which is step 2. Okay, so you and Planner McPherson will address some of the concerns raised by the committee this evening, and then we'll have you back at our, would it be able to be as soon as our next meeting, which is a little bit of a, or maybe after the new year? I'm not sure. Any comment on that?
So,
We would have to have a detailed discussion about time constraints of this committee, how much we put on this committee for the December meeting. So there's going to have to be a discussion in the House before we can confirm the agenda items.
Okay.
if I understand clearly, we'd be repeating this again. Why?
I think some of the committee members have expressed that the project is not at, being presented at a point at which we would expect for step 2. So that's because the next step thereafter would be the final report from staff and our committee making a recommendation based on that report. So I think there are some things that the committee wishes to be addressed before we get to step 3 at this.
Aside from the stormwater management plan, which would be approved by engineers?
Yes, I think there's some concerns about traffic flow, movement of vehicles and pedestrians over the lands, and also the design.
So my understanding was that I would require the traffic study by the 3rd meeting, which we were okay with. I approved that today for them to do it for the January meeting. We'd have an updated site plan by then, which would have the looped road. The site design, I wasn't given anything specific critiquing design. I like the design, the architect likes the design, we wouldn't present it otherwise, so.
And it is a bit of a, I apologize a little bit because it is a little bit of a who goes first kind of thing, but typically the developer would provide an update. The first one is really just to provide us with mass and scale, and then we would expect the second meeting for there to be more to see. So providing the same renderings would be unexpected, basically, at the second meeting. We would want to see a little bit more.
Can you explain what you mean by more?
What else want to add to that?
I think our developer is expressing to us that this is his final draft, or his final,
We haven't determined colors or materials, but this was the essential massing, shape, and general feel of it.
It would be very difficult to approve this design from my point of view, as it exists on this paper right now.
Okay.
Do you want to provide a little feedback then, if we are asking for some changes to be made?
Yes, I would reiterate Councillor Thomas's comments that it looks very industrial at this time. It looks institutional at this time. It does not look residential in my view. I don't feel it is in any way compatible with the neighborhood as it exists now. I don't see a lot of character. I see flat roofs. I have no idea. I know that I've learned over time that things like, and I see there are some pitched roofs, and that's great, and I see there's some variance in, what do we call it, step backs? Is that what we call? Not setbacks, but the step backs. Like there's a lot of design features that can be done to enhance this from where it is at this time.
I guess respectfully, I selected an architect whose taste I love, and my taste aligns with his, and this is what we came up with. And if you look up the architect's work, I think he's fantastic. I think it's an East Coast scaled look, and due to the roofs and the use of materials. He's very particular, like very, very particular architect. And I'm happy to go back and talk to him about his design, but I need much more constructive feedback, other than a difference in opinion of.
I think part of the issue might be that I think they're looking for more articulation of the facade. So they want to see more detail about, like, because the way it's currently presented, it is very much a massing diagram. I think they're looking for more information about not necessarily materials, but basically some almost photorealistic renderings of the site or the development to show what it's going to look like. Because what they're seeing now is just it's more of a massing diagram, doesn't provide enough information. So I think that's what they're seeking, if that helps clarify.
My understanding was all of that was later.
Yeah, and sometimes it is, but I think what we're hearing today is that the committee can ask for the information if they feel it's necessary, and I think they're telling you quite clearly that that's what they want to see. And I think staff have enough information to better describe what it is we want to see before we can proceed to step 3.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And sorry, I don't mean to be, I don't mean to confuse you, but in my opinion, and I would share this with Planner McPherson, I don't see this as a project that needs to resemble a single-family home. You are set far from the kind of residential streetscape of, the other project, for example. So I don't agree with all of Councillor Graham's comments that, this needs to have pitched roofs and all that kind of stuff. To me, it is, off on its own. It's, but, it would be nice to see where are the doors. If I'm living here, how do I sort of move around? So I think, I'm not looking for a full overhaul. I don't know about others, because I don't see this as a project that's trying to kind of fit in. But I do think, there does need to be a little bit more for us to see. Councillor McGrath?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and this will be quick. I agree with you with regard to sort of the style. I have no problem with flat roofs. Maybe put a garden up there, so wind turbine, solar, something. Flat doesn't bother me. But agreeing with the rest of the committee, we do want to see more of, not just a massing diagram. And Mr. Fox has indicated that staff will be able to help guide you on that. And I do look forward to seeing what you bring us at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Thomas?
Yeah, I was thinking things like balconies. I don't know what the balconies look like, where they're situated, There's none of that. I can guess what is a balcony and what is not a balcony, but, from this rendering here, for instance, I don't know where the doors are there to get out to the balcony, what it looks like, which are balconies. Are there any balconies here? I need to know that sort of information for amenity space and what the building looks like and its appeal and all those other things. That's all part of the decision-making here. So I don't think it's that onerous, but I think you just work with the planning department on this. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
I might just add one last thing, and that's some landscaping. And it's tricky because nothing worse than someone bringing a project that has like 40-foot tall trees and it's completely unrealistic.
Right.
We don't want you to hide, behind beautiful trees that will take 40 years to grow. But it would be nice to know that, there will be some landscaping. That certainly does add to every project, certainly one of this size. Well, I don't see anyone else in the queue. Oh, yes, go ahead, if you could bring him the microphone.
Thank you. I must say I was blown away by the size of this development. But I think one of the things that sort of puts people off is the color. Your first impression is, My God, I couldn't live in that. But of course, it'll change with time. But it's the color rendition is rather off-putting. But that's just that maybe first impressions.
It's not the actual colors. I think he's just showing
Yeah.
rotating colors.
Oh, well,
I would never pick those colors.
Yeah, no. Oh, good. The curvation of it, it makes it look like the Watergate complex in Washington, which is probably very appropriate for the water. And the other thing I was going to ask was, what level is the water table in this part of the town? What is the depth of the water table?
We had a fair amount of discussion about the floodplain. So we have already discussed that we will be requiring the applicant to provide
that's the top water. What about the underneath water?
I imagine that will be part of it, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Do you mind introducing yourself, sir?
My name is Guy Wood, and I'm the ownership of the Service Master.
Thank you.
I'm still quite concerned about the direction of the water. Even when the town was doing the sewer, and I think I mentioned it last time, they left some gravel there and filled it in, and that's why that little pond shows up in the back, because the neighboring property owner, he put a little road in there and closed off the berm or a dip or whatever you want to call it, because it used to drain off towards, on normal rain situations, towards B&D Auto Glass, but there is that property between the property we're talking about and B&D, which is owned by the Yaden, Bob Yaden. So, but the water also comes in that way. When we do get heavy flooding, as we did a couple times in that particular area, and it goes through behind our shop, behind those houses, and normally the water would drain towards this property, away from the houses, with a small berm going through. We tried to keep it there, and I tried to keep that instated when I used to have the grading there, because I used to grade behind there for the residences, so we could come and go out of both driveways. And I know winter time is challenging next to, closer to us, but that's why we did pave it. But there is an in and an out, and people still go in and out, but it's much easier down towards B&D when it does get slippery. Now, it's pretty rough there right now, because there is a fair bit of water that runs off Roby down in that area, and it's pretty potholey there right now, which I haven't done anything about. But it also drains kind of naturally right over behind our property and behind the rest of the properties on Roby. And then it continues on behind the Hayward Street property down towards Marshland Drive. There is a ditch there because I had my part of the land when Bruce Hill had it. And just kind of, I leveled it all off and kind of wanted to keep that lower so that any water that came across there would go find a place on that strip that I have behind Hayward Court, because it runs down there a ways behind the residences towards the apartment building. And that's what it essentially was for, is to try to channel the water that way. So, but it doesn't quite make it that way now because of what happened when they just leveled off the excess gravel that was there. And if you guys remember, there were two big, huge buildings, an office building, and basically a set of scales and everything there when Hills used to have the property many years ago. And the main access for that property was Marshland Drive. And an odd time, the one next to B&D Auto, but no big trucks or any heavy traffic. Most of it was all through the backyard, out through onto Marshland Drive. But as the town grows and we get a lot of traffic, Marshland Drive gets pretty heavily trafficked as well. But I can speak, it's pretty heavy on Roby Street, and most times, and it can be backed up pretty much 2 or 3 or 4 streets from the three-way stop down by where Greco is and the two car dealerships at that intersection. So it does get backed up sometimes, and not always, and I'm not trying to discourage the property. It's just that I think most of the residents in that area were very concerned about the elevations and where that water is going to go. And like I say, we could end up with another disaster like we had, you know, a couple years apart. So, and, but let's hope not. But the water's got to go somewheres when it shows up. So it's very important to us and very important to all the residences all along there. Hayward Court, they're still up quite high. So, as most of the property that this project's on. So it's the low-lying lands where B&D Auto Glass is, and actually right over to Ford Street, to be honest, or there's another short street in between us, between Ford, and there's a dead-end street there. That takes a lot of water when we get these sudden episodes. So we just want to be reassured that we're not going to be left in a bigger hole than what we're in now. So if we don't get the proper elevation and drainage properly, so. And so it's just a big concern of ours. So.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. It's helpful to have somebody who knows the property so well. We really appreciate your comments.
Good evening. My name is Kian Atak. I'm the resident of 435 Roby Street. I've been living in Truro for more than 10 years now, and I've been living in my property for the last 5 years. English is not my first language, so excuse me for that. But I'm not going to speak French, don't worry. And so my background is firefighting and law enforcement. I've been a volunteer firefighter with Truro Fire for the last 9 years, and I worked for Truro Police for 3 years as a dispatcher, and I had to leave both because of my current job. I joined Canadian Armed Forces, and I'm currently deployed. I'm just here for home for a couple of weeks, and then I'm going back to overseas end of the month, so I won't be able to attend any more future meetings. So before I got here tonight, I consulted with the people I know, contractors, firefighters, police officers, and healthcare professionals. So and this size of the development it's huge, 355 units. You are looking at bringing 1,000+ people to the town. And my first question is that, do we have resources to support all these new residents? I mean, it's good that town is developing and everything, but we are not getting new hospitals, we are not getting new schools. Roads are the same, more cars on the road. Roby Street, as everybody mentioned, traffic is getting worse and worse every day. From my property to take a left turn towards town to go to Superstore, a lot of times I'm not able to take a left turn. I just take a right turn and take the Longworth Avenue to get to town. Other than that, statistically speaking, as a law enforcement member, whenever you bring this kind of a residential unit with multi people coming in, 1,000+, you are looking for here, and statistically speaking, crime rates are going to go high, so you will be creating extra call rate on your local police force as well. And fire safety is another concern. I responded a lot of fires during my years, and I personally wouldn't want to be responding to this. Like, this is almost like Halifax sized buildings, and I don't know how this kind of a building is going to fit in our neighborhood. And I asked around about this property before years ago, and I was always told that this was a flood zone, nobody can build here. I've talked to people who tried to purchase this property to build stuff. They were always said no by the council, and suddenly now we have a project which is okay now, but I don't know why. Maybe you can answer to that. And another concern, that if this project were to go ahead and there's going to be a lot of traffic, there's going to be a lot of machinery, and our residential areas, our homes are so close, so because of the digging and the vibration, our foundations and surrounding areas could receive damages. My question would that be, if my foundation cracks because of the vibration and such due to construction, am I covered by the town or am I covered by the developer? And another thing I would like to add, that the design of the building that everybody mentioned, it looks very futuristic. I'm a big sci-fi fan. I love the look of it, but does it really fit into this town. I mean, we are more used to the classic homes and Victorian era buildings. It looks very futuristic. I'm sure developer will address that in the future. So I would like to agree with Councillor McCraw there. And no offense to the developer, and it's my personal opinion, no offense, that he left a lot of questions unanswered from the previous meeting. So I personally believe that he came here a bit unprepared. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, thanks, everybody. I think at this point we'll let you go, Mr. Corey. We don't have anybody else waiting to add anything. So we will, you'll speak with Mr. McPherson, and we'll see you at the next, whether it's our next meeting or your next meeting. We'll see you then. Okay, I'm just going to do some squats to make sure my legs are still working. Come on down, the final item on the agenda this evening. I guess they're bringing 2 bottles of water. I know some of you have been here before, but it's been a little while, so sorry. Do you mind just reminding us of your names? Lucas McDowell. Okay, thank you.
Ethan Crossman.
Okay, thank you, Ethan. And I know Mitch. Okay. Dowell, Ethan. Okay, wonderful. Okay, this is, whose is this?
Mine.
Okay. I'm excited to have you back on the agenda. I was worried you'd gone away for good. So, all right. Well, this is are we at step 2 of the expanded process? Factory 58, is it 67 Inglis? Yeah, 67 Inglis Place. So we will let Senior, I don't know all your titles, but Mr. Fox, take it from here.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. So yes, this is an application for 67 Inglis Place. It's a development agreement application. The application is by Factory 58 Holdings Incorporated. It's initially was made back in December 2024. The original proposal consisted of a 4-story building that had 30 units. There's also about 1,100 square meters or 3,570 square feet of street-level commercial space, and there was a parking area for 21 vehicles. That proposal was recommended for approval by this committee back in February 2025, earlier this year. And you may recall this is one of the renderings produced by the applicant, by the architect to illustrate the proposal. That was the approved proposal that was brought before this committee. The applicant is now considering different design options and is seeking feedback from the committee before proceeding. And staff are recommending that we take this back to step 2 of the town's development application process, just so they have an opportunity to hear from you on the different design proposals they are suggesting, and then go away and prepare some more detailed plans based on that, and then come back at step 3 of the process and for a recommendation at that time. Application status, again, we are at step 2, which is the initial public engagement or community engagement piece, and this would be typically the second meeting when we would have revisions based on feedback from step 1, but we've already been through step 1, already had some feedback from the committee based on that. So now we're looking at, I'm just going to quickly go over where the property is. I think most people are familiar with the property. It's the old parking lot for their Margolian store, and it's actually even older than that. It used to be an Irving service station way back. So that's the property there. It's at the intersection of Inglis, Havelock, and Esplanade. It'd be next to the Take It Outside store. And it's an existing parking lot, and it is approximately 16,000 square feet, 0.37 acres, or about 1,486 meters in area. It has 160 feet of frontage on the Esplanade, 80 feet of frontage on Inglis Place, and another 112 feet of frontage on Havelock. The property is currently developed as a private parking lot for about 43 vehicles. It is entirely surfaced with asphalt. The subject property is situated in the heart of the Truro's downtown. occupies a high-profile corner. Area is characterized by traditional commercial architecture with 2- and 3-story buildings that are situated at the street, with street-oriented commercial street spaces at grade, resulting in really welcoming and pedestrian-friendly environments, such as like the development you see on English Place. The notable exception, of course, being the Truro Center development located across the Esplanade to the south, which is a 1-story shopping plaza set back from the street with parking in the front. So the lands are within should say lands are within the downtown core policy area, but this just, sorry, never mind, disregard that, but it's just another photo showing the parking lot from a different angle from English Place. Land uses in the area are primarily commercial with office and professional uses, street level retail, restaurants. There are a few residential uses on the upper floors of structures in the area, and other nearby uses include large multi-unit residential uses on Victoria and Forester Streets, 1 block to the west. So now, yes, the subject lands are within the downtown core policy area, so you can see them outlined in blue there. They're also in the downtown core DC zone. This is a site plan, which is the revised site plan, but it's the same site plan effectively as was submitted previously, although this one doesn't really show the breezeway, that connection that used to go from Esplanade through to the parking lot. So there is a preliminary plan have been submitted for a 4-story, well, there's a number of different options, and I'll show you those now. So the first one here is the existing sort of approved scenario showing the 27 unit building now with proposal features a surface parking area for the 21 vehicles, including 1 accessible stall. Parking ratio is 0.77 spaces per dwelling unit. Units do not include balconies, but there is that amenity space at grade, which is the covered terrace area, which is just a little over 2,000 square meters in area. The second proposal that's come forward that the applicant wishes the committee to take into consider is a 36 unit, 242 unit per hectare or 98 units per acre proposal featuring a surface parking area again for 21 vehicles. So that doesn't change. That's consistent throughout all of these scenarios. The parking ratio for this one will be 0.58 spaces per dwelling unit. The units do not include balconies again, and there is still that amenity space at the covered terrace at grade. And just to orient you, again, like this is English Place here on the lower left-hand side of the screen. Esplanade runs across from the bottom of the screen to the right-hand side, and then you have Havelock running in behind. Another proposal that was put forward, there's 4 proposals in total. I've lettered them, I labeled them A, B, C, and D. So there's the current proposal, or the one that was approved. You have B shown here, which is the 5-story proposal. C here, which shows the same proposal but removing the ground floor covered terrace and removing the amenity space to the top floor. So this is still the same unit count, 36 units, but it features that rooftop patio, so there's additional retail space or commercial space at grade, is my understanding. I mean, that hasn't been made entirely clear, but yes. And then the final proposal here, which is I'm calling D, shows the 5th floor step back from the street, which preserves that kind of street line on English Place. So now we have a 33 units, so slightly fewer units with a density of around 222 units per hectare, or about 89 units per acre. Proposal features, again, has that same surface parking area, 21 vehicles, has a parking ratio of 0.64 spaces per dwelling unit. And again, there is no balconies, but they are showing a rooftop amenity space on this one as well. So just refresher really quickly, this is the enabling policy that allows council to consider this application, so that's DC 74. And then we also, just in terms of public participation, I was presuming we get through today, we will go ahead and produce the development application sign, and we'll put the information updated on the town's website under active development applications. Pardon me for the spelling error there. Mail out will be sent to the property owners within 150 meters. Again, we'll do that as well. And just in terms of what we're expecting from you today at this step, the committee members, I'm hoping will give the applicants and the architects some feedback on the 4 scenarios that have been presented, and perhaps some direction on which proposal that you'd be prepared to support. And if you also, I think the chair may wish to entertain, if you guys want to comment on your proposals. Yeah. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. Maybe I could just ask a question. Can somebody clarify the commercial aspect in any and all of the suggestions?
Yeah, it's okay. The mic's working now. So, thank you guys. So yeah, as you guys know, this has been before the committee before, and it's been approved. It's been beyond to step 3 beforehand with Mitch. And so Mitch had reached out to a few of us and partners to kind of come in and sort of determine what could be more feasible. And so what we did is we investigated the feedback that we had received previously. Ironically, I had been in the room when you guys had kind of talked about the safety and whatnot of the breezeway going through on the ground floor. And so what we kind of tried to do is work out with the architects to figure out what could be common ground and make the most sense. And so we worked with the town to say, well, there has been some appetite that we've heard for perhaps a rooftop amenity space. So if we were able to mitigate some of the safety concerns with the ground level, could we now accommodate the amenity space up on the rooftop as opposed to on the ground level? And so as we did that, obviously you guys previously have seen the floor grades and whatnot and the kind of unit mix. And so what we did with this application was we'll come back to step 2 just to get some more granular feedback from you guys. The unit mix will remain between the 27 and 33 with a percentage base being the same, accommodating the 10% of the total unit count being affordable. But we mainly wanted to get your guys' input on, since this is the downtown core, this is not on more rural growth, what your guys' thoughts were around the rooftop amenity space, and if that was a suitable kind of happy medium balance. And that's, I guess, why we've come back to step 2 so that we can show, I guess, your feedback in step 3.
So, sorry, Ethan, will there be any commercial space on the ground floor?
Ground floor, yeah. Right now we've got 2 different commercial units,
Okay.
And basically what now and while we have in what's showing right now, we would have sort of a lobby with perhaps a slight increase in square footage in commercial space, but I'll let my architects speak more to the design aspect.
Okay, thank you. So the amenity space would be for residents of the building. Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
The ground floor is like primarily commercial. There's obviously, the vertical circulation, a lobby space.
Right, and you can see the bigger windows there, which seem to indicate that. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. Councillor Graham, I think you're
Level. I mean, if we can't have both the rooftop, but I would like the breezeway, but I'm just one, yeah.
And this idea of repeating structural patterns on that English street, so it comes along and it continues. Do you know what I mean? So the window height and as much as possible, so it makes it kind of more uniform and it doesn't stick out as some oddity somehow. And I think you understand that. So when it comes to the 4th, 4 or 5 stories, I would like you to consider the heights of the other buildings and the building plane. So if it's 3, then 5, that would be an option E, by the way. If it was 3, then 2 to make 5, that would be all right, A little concerned about the parking, but it's still within 0.5, right? It was said, I think he said 0.57 or something. So you're still within permissible parking spaces, so that's your decision. In regards to the breezeway, I think the breezeway is a disaster waiting to happen. and because she spoke so strongly in favor of it, I feel urged to speak strongly against it. First of all, it's going to be a dungeon. Listen, there's no sunlight in that. you know, and my experience of living in Truro for 42 years, 43 years now is that summers are kind of short. They're getting a little longer now, by the way, with climate change, but they tend to be short, and they tend to be a lot of cool breeze, especially in April and May, right? There's just these, and if you're not in the sun, it's cold, right? But if you get in the sun, you know, even though there's a cool breeze blowing, it's okay, you know? But so I think that this will be underutilized, and when it is utilized, I fear that it will be people that, you know, you don't want people hanging around there. And I think as you're walking down the street, people will be concerned as they approach it. Is there somebody in there, you know, or not? I think that's a real concern, you know, to everybody, even guys that are 6'6", you know, 240 pounds. I think, you know, right? So I'm not going to label who gets afraid at night, but I think that is a concern, you know. And so, and I think if you're putting a top roof recreational part on the roof and it was in a residential area, I would be concerned, because then you're looking down and people are partying up there. But this is in the downtown area, and it, particularly when it's set back, you know, right? That third or fifth story set back, and then it's on top. I don't think that's a concern. So thank you for coming back. I think it's an improvement. You want to talk about the breezeway?
I'll tell you why the breezeway was put in play.
Yeah.
This goes further than that.
Hand him the microphone there.
So the reason the breezeway was there, the space on the other side of the parking lot, which is Grow and Brew, which would be my tenant of that other building.
I understand.
So the point of it being was to kind of have a visual from the street still into that parking lot and into Grow and Brew, to not basically suffocate them off from the rest of it.
I know.
That's still an important tenant of mine, and I was kind of trying to think about them on the design of the building and when we built it. So that was the first point of the breezeway. So, and I kind of liked it too, but I like the look of it. But other than that, that was the major point of it. Okay. That's it.
Yeah, I'm counting on the other three to dampen that urge in you. I'm just kidding. The final thing is the material that you use. I'd like to see it because it's such an important corner. You know, that corner downtown is very important to the future, not only now, but to the future development of the town and what it'll look like and what is its character. So I'm asking you to consider some material that, you know, is typical of Inglis Street, you know. And so I'm not in favor of, I'll just come right out and say it. You have to go a long way to convince me of metal cladding as being a desirable facade for this building. Okay, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Councillor McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll note there's no sunlight in here either, and yet by the miracle of electricity, we can still see. Yes, it can get cold, but I like the breezeway as well. Honestly, I like the breezeway, not just because, you know, it would be publicly available. So if I'm walking down, you know, and maybe it's summer and it's hot, I can pop in under the shade, grab, you know, I think the previous renderings you had like cafe tables or something there. You know, you hang out in there, cool off a little bit. Or in the winter, oh, the wind's blowing, I can pop in there and get out of the wind a little bit. And it's available to the public. So I like that. And honestly, you know, rooftop amenities, that sounds great too, if you wanted to do that. I like what's going to give us, yeah, probably option B here, just mostly because it's the most units. I love to see that many people living downtown, right? I'm a huge supporter of small business. As Mitch, you know, I'm down on Inglis every weekend almost. It's, you know, it's a really important part of Truro. And I think bringing more people down there who can access everything they need. The Sobeys is a hop, skip, and a jump. You've got all the great shops on Inglis, all the rest of the great downtown shopping. I want more people to be able to experience that. And the parking concerns, if I was living there, I wouldn't own a car. As simple as that. now I know I've probably asked this before, but it's been a year. You said you were probably going to have bicycle parking. You were talking about car share and things. So, helping to mitigate the minimal parking that's available. If there was a spot dedicated to car share or something, if we can entice the car share companies here, helps reduce the need for additional parking.
Yeah, I
Is that
think we
still on the table?
incentivize not having a car, to be honest with you. So there was going to be a room downstairs for e-bikes to be plugged in, a place like safe storage or whatever to kind of more incentivize people to bike than car. And I mean, again, like a building like that, that's the closest thing to get to city living. You can just walk out your door and you have everything there. You don't need a car, and that's kind of the vision of it. So that's parking. I know people are going to hate me because you take away a corner parking lot, but like Jason said, there's a ton of parking downtown if you just want to walk 100 feet or so. And I think the benefits of that building downtown far outweigh the negatives of a few parking spaces gone. So
honestly, I think one of the best things that you did for helping accentuate the parking was charging for parking on that space.
Well, it was a trial run.
And it was a trial run, and you know what? Almost nobody parked there.
Exactly. They found a place.
And yet, there was still ample parking.
Yeah, and the businesses, any of my tenants, they said they didn't see any drop in sales or anything. No. So it was kind of a good experience. It wasn't meant to be an experiment, but it kind of ended up being an experiment. And it kind of gave us some info on the whole thing. Beyond
sometimes that's some of the best science.
Yeah, exactly.
You find something you weren't looking for.
Exactly.
So yeah, I would go. I'll be happy with a lot of things, I think, but B would be my preference, but if you wanted to make it a rooftop amenity instead and have more commercial space, I mean, that works too. I would just love to see more people living downtown, especially when we eventually hopefully, get to more rail lines.
Yeah.
If we could get that day liner in and you've got a bunch of people living here, maybe they walk across, they walk downstairs, grab a coffee at Brookfield, walk over to the train station, take a train into Halifax, do their work day, come home, party down on Inglis or wherever. Exactly. Honestly, it would be ideal. I wouldn't even mind working in Halifax if I could take the train in personally. But so I would B as a first option, C, I guess, as a second. Thanks for coming back, gentlemen.
Okay, Ms. Deloria.
Thank you so much for coming back. I'm in favor of this development. I'm on the fence about the breezeway. Because I can see the benefit of it, and especially, as you said, one of your tenants. But I also can see the security concerns regarding this. And, I don't know how much of a strain we put into our police and all of that. As you also know that, sometimes downtown we do have security and safety issues currently. So I'm on the fence of that. I don't know. I personally like rendering number D. I think we lose 3 units, but I think this will work very well with what we already have existing in there. And looking into the future, I do see the breezeway being a plus if, we have plans of closing the street, and that will definitely enhance that and will make it more attractive. But like I said before, the safety also concerns me. But, I appreciate you coming back, and I'm really looking forward to see, where this goes. But, if we had to choose, I will go for D.
Just like all the buildings downtown, there's lots of surveillance on them. And, I don't believe the breezeway attracts anybody different down there than it's already going to be there in the first place. And really, depending on if it's tables and chairs, or those are getting put away every night probably, so it'll just be an empty hole in a building that they can cause trouble in. I don't know, but I honestly don't have that much trouble downtown with that stuff because the surveillance system and because the cops walk the beat. And honestly, cops go up and down English Street pretty steady throughout the nights too, which is nice. But I see what you're saying, but I haven't, I guess 10 years of owning buildings down there, I haven't seen much of it yet. Luckily, cross my finger, knock on wood.
At the top of your head, if you were to put the breezeway on rendering number D,
awesome.
do we lose?
That's what we want. That's what we want.
Do we lose a lot of commercial space on?
We lose 2,000 square feet, right?
At the end of the day, the reason that you have so many options in front of you is because of the financial feasibility of this project. And that's really why it's back in front of you today. So I figured that D with the setback, rooftop, and the breezeway would likely be the preference here this evening. However, you know, when we talk about the setback and the ample amenity space in comparison to what's required, I guess what we're here to find out is there particular streets that the setback would be required on versus not, and I guess would it be acceptable moving to step 3 if we were to propose one of the 2 amenity spaces, is essentially what we're looking to find out.
Could you jump in?
Yeah, do you mind, Deputy Mayor, if I step in just 1 second here? Okay. I just wanted, from a town's policy, urban design guidelines perspective, the D is the preferred option from the step back. Like, you can see it aligns nicely with the existing sort of cornice line on the adjacent buildings and the old Margolians buildings. So I think that's important. I also worry that if you have that 5th floor right to the street, that it's going to make English Place seem more like a cavern. I don't know if, and I think that can be unappealing. It certainly has impacts on daylight access and things like that. So I would be concerned about having that 5th floor not step back. So from a town's design perspective. Now, in terms of which streets, I did catch that comment. I mean, I certainly like it on all streets, but I think it would be less of a significant from a urban design perspective if it wasn't to step back on the Esplanade. I'm not so sure about Havelock. You know, Havelock, you still have the potential of something happening on the other side of the street someday in the future, so I think I'd really like to be concerned about the pedestrian environment there. But the south-facing side, I don't think it's, from my perspective, I mean, the committee may disagree, but from my perspective, I don't know if it's as key if that happens. It would be lovely if you didn't have the step back, but you did something architecturally to reinforce that cornice, that sort of height, reinforce that sort of level.
Just for the benefit of the committee, if we're looking at figure 7, which is D, it's a little hard to tell. What am I trying to show you? Is it stepped back on all 4? I mean, there's more than 4 sides because of the shape.
There's
but-
3.
The parking lot, it does not step back.
Okay, thank you. I think you just brought us here so you guys could settle this argument between you. But I am team no breezeway. And I was going to suggest C because I think more units, to Councillor McGrath's point, are beneficial. But I do appreciate the comments about the design, and I don't want to just forget that that's part of this as well. So my vote is for D. Councillor Graham, you're next in the queue, and then Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Well, I feel like I'm losing the breezeway, but I still really like it because also we talked about a public washroom, access to a public washroom in there at one time, which I also really think is important for the downtown. And I think at that time you did see that as a possibility. Like in places like Toronto, I see you can put a loonie or a quarter in and use the washroom, and then you get your loonie or quarter back, which, you know, helps with keeping unsavory clients out of the bathroom.
Yeah, my opinion on that is like the problem with it is it seems like a great idea until you're the one cleaning it and maintaining it. And I've had businesses downtown for the last 15 years, and I was in charge of cleaning some of those messes up many times. And I think,
get it.
Yeah, and as hypocritical as I sound about there not being any issues downtown, during the day, plenty of people walking back and forth there that there's lots of traffic and drug use and whatever else happens, it will be hours, but when that opens up, that will happen in that bathroom, guaranteed.
Yeah.
That's pretty much my
I
stance
get
on
it,
that one, yeah.
but I throw it out there all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, no,
I
for
just
sure.
feel I need to
Yeah.
because I do think public washroom access is important in any community.
Yeah, I just.
But I get it.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
100% agree with you, Councillor Graham. I just don't think it's something that we should put on private developers. I think it's something that the councillors and the town need to get their agreement together. So I'm going to put that back on you. Deputy Mayor Thomas.
Yeah, so I said D or E, but I'm firmly now in D, on D. And because of your comments about affordability and et cetera, maximizing units, but I want to step back, and I want to step back on both streets. But I want to address this, the breezeway and the security issue. Right across the street from that is the strip mall, and you might not be aware, but there was a breezeway in that. And right beside the breezeway was the commissioner's office, and those people are trained in security. They couldn't control what was happening there. It was taking all their time to control what was happening there, just as an annoyance to them in their business. I think you should listen to that loud and clear. So
Yeah, I guess if you're looking at homeless people using it as shelter, which is what I think that breezeway down there maybe was used for. I went through it almost every day. I had to go biking to the park, and there was always stuff going on in there for sure. So no, I kind of get what you're saying. I just think where it is located compared to where this one's located, there's a bit of a different flow of people around, but it's hard to say. Yeah, I know. Was there surveillance on it?
yes, Mr. Dolter could speak better to it, but it was a real issue, and so much so because council wanted to see it opened up
Yeah.
because a lot of people use that.
Oh, I know, it's
And
closed.
we're very disappointed to see it closed. We worked with the owners of the strip mall. Could you please open it up? It's used by a lot of people. The situation's changed now in regards to the tracks and crossing the tracks. However, at that point, it was a lot of people wanted to see it open, and the answer was clearly no because of the issues with it. So, Mr. Dolter, if you could just speak to that.
Yeah, the breezeway was having a big impact on the tenants of the mall. And, yeah, it was very unsanitary, which I think everybody understood, but there were a number of people that did stay in there. There was an issue with people actually hiding on the back wall, and when people walked through, they were accosted. So, yeah, there was some longstanding issue. Truro Police Service was aware of it and monitored on a regular basis, but there were still things going on. There weren't cameras on it, as far as I'm aware. At least the owners didn't indicate that to us. But as the deputy mayor said, there was a number of attempts to put some level of security on there, and then they just got to the point where it wasn't worth the trouble it was placing on the tenants, and they had tenants that wanted to move out of the adjacent units that were next to the breezeway. So again, decision was made to close it and privately owned, so we had no control over whether or not it was closed. And I think Truro Police Service actually appreciated being closed because, again, they didn't get called there on a as frequent basis as they had been in the past.
You're convincing me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just in defense to the committee, try to sway people toward option C. I just want to point out, the roof line, the existing roof line all along Inglis is already sawtoothed up, down. I don't see that extra setback would be a huge issue there. So I am still firmly Team C or Team B if we could convince people to the breezeway, which I don't think is going to happen, but firmly Team C. Thank you.
Okay, well, I don't know if we've provided concrete feedback, but but I think, the committee certainly does really like the project. I agree that there needs to be a bit of comfort about the facade, so I think that would be something that would be really important to bring to us the next time. And other than that, unless others have other comments, I think we look forward to.
Right on.
As a long-time user of Jamali.
Oh, that's right.
Both sides of the
That's right.
I commend you three-dimensional model.
Good architects.
Yeah, because the last two, you couldn't really tell properly what was going on, but you do get the gist of the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
I would not go with a breezeway personally
Okay.
for the reasons that
Yep.
you stated. But I think that the new multi-story at the bottom of Young Street on
Yep.
the other side of the tracks, I think it has got a
Rooftop.
a rooftop.
It does,
doesn't
yeah.
it?
Yeah.
So that wouldn't be out of place.
Yeah, no, I want the rooftop for sure, no matter what. I was telling these guys that from the start.
And have it there so that if somebody fell off, they just go down once.
Yeah, it's all good.
Coming back at step 2 or 3?
3.
3, okay.
That's my recommendation.
Okay. I think, oh,
Well, I would like to just show that compared to other two projects, this was the best by far.
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll take it.
Luckily, we can pick more than one, but thank you. All right.
No water management.
Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you.